time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everyone? A pleasant good morning, dissidents. Welcome one and all to the Morning Dew Friday 9 a.m. edition of the Dew Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here from the great city of New York, New York. Russell Dovular, back in town. You look tired.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Let me tell you. Listen. Usually, and this is partly probably my changing perspective. It's probably also a changing America. It used to be if I went out of town, I would get a little homesick. I would look forward to it. Get back to New York. Oh, man, I'm going to get me a slice of pizza. I'm going to go to that favorite movie theater, right?
That's the thing about Italy. You go over there and you're just dying for a good slice of pizza, but you can't find one anywhere.
Yeah, so finally you're going to get back to New York.
Right.
No, but you know what, man? I first discovered this when I dated a girl from Michigan, and she liked the Domino's better. And I thought about that. How could you like the Domino's? Oh, that's what you grew up on.
It's what you know.
It's what you know. So you are going to, even if you were in Italy having Italian pizza, you're still going to want that New York slice when you get back, because you just associate it with home. It's not because you think it's better. It's just you associate it with home. All right. So,
by the way, hold on. During the countdown, did you change your shirt?
Well, yeah.
You did. Okay. Because you look different. Because we sign on a little bit before the show to prep a little, and then we put the countdown on, and then I come back and there's something different about you. That's it. Your shirt's different.
Well, because, I got in at 2 a.m, which I will explain, because there was no reason it had to go down like that. The plane actually got in early. I'll explain that, but it's a fucking disaster here. And I just crashed for a few hours. I got up and, so I threw on the first shirt that came to hand, and I said, hey, you know what? You actually have shirt options other than the 4 you brought with you to Europe.
Right.
You could actually wear something else.
Exactly.
You have a whole drawer full of other shirts you could put on. You're not limited to the Europe collection anymore.
Well, here's your Facebook post here that you shared upon your return. I'm not on the Facebook much anymore, but this is your picture from the commute back, right? So you say Trump wasn't wrong about shithole countries. He was just looking in the wrong direction. If this ain't a shithole country, what is? Yeah, here's the sites of, what is this? Is this LaGuardia, JFK?
All right. So let me explain this. And somebody, good catch, caught the mug. This is from the Vatican. This is a Vatican coffee mug. Okay, so generally, a lot of places you go will tell you pictures are forbidden, and I respect that. The one place I didn't was the Sistine Chapel, because I felt like, this shit don't belong to you. It belongs to the world. Fuck you. I'm taking pictures.
Everybody does, yeah. They sneak them.
I was like, yeah, I'm fuck you. That doesn't belong to you. You're a trustee of this work that belongs to humankind. But that aside, okay. So the first picture, go back to the first one. So you get off the fucking plane, and I understand it's New York and more people come to New York than other places, sure. But I've been to, I think it's either 12 or 14 countries now. So it's not like I'm one of these people that's been to 80 countries. But I am just telling you, I've never seen shit like this anywhere else that I've ever gone, where like this is what the third world is supposed to be, right? Where they don't have enough.
This is a line to get somewhere.
This is the line for your passport clearance, and
yeah.
this is backed up almost to the entrance of the fucking plane. Seriously, you get off and you hit a line. You're like, what the fuck is this? There's no place else I've been that's this broken. Like what I really saw when I got back very quickly in rapid succession is, it's not about how much money your society has. It's about what you spend it on. It's about what you put it into.
Right.
And because our society puts all the money into tax cuts for billionaires and very little money into the actual running of things, the actual infrastructure, the actual bureaucracy, you get shit like this. Like, this is the end of the line. If you see going down there, once you get down there, you're going to go into the cattle pen. This is before you even get to the cattle pen.
Right.
No place else I've gone is this fucked up and inefficient. Dude, there's not a lot of people in India. There's a lot of people in India, right? There's a lot of people in Delhi. I went to Delhi, man. I was fucking in and out with the passport clearance, man. 10 minutes. 10 minutes tops, I was out of passport clearance.
When my uncle flew to Malta, he forgot his passport one time, and the guy checking literally looks at him. He says, "Where's your passport?" My uncle says, "Oh, my God, I forgot, or it's in my bag or whatever, that was checked. I don't have it." He says, "Next time." And pulls him through.
Well, that's another thing. Like, things you think they're gonna break your balls about. That's a whole other thing.
Here, forget it. They drag you in. They'd shine a light in your face. They'd ask you everything you've been doing for the last 6 weeks of your life.
They'd make you sweat it out under the lights.
Exactly.
So then, I was careful not to share a picture with anyone's face clearly in it. But look, man, this is. I always think of, when you look at this, this is what Tom Wolfe in the electric acid Kool-Aid test. He has a whole section on New York in there, and he calls it the New York shit kick. Like, just that feeling that the people aren't happy and they're stressed and they're full of anxiety and they're fucking miserable. So I thought that picture, without showing faces, kind of captured that vibe. And then, so I'm waiting for the A train to go home with these two women from Paris, right? And they got quite a first introduction to our fair country. We get on the car. There is a woman naked from the waist down, raving on the subway car.
Welcome to America.
Welcome to America. Exactly. Which I gotta say, man, I'm from this shithole country, and just being out of it for a month, it was culture shock for me to see something like that. So everybody goes to the next car, obviously. And now the infrastructure's all fucked up. It's the train is only running 4 stops, and then you got to take a shuttle bus 4 stops, and then you got to get back on the train. This train ride, it took me. My plane landed at 9:30. I didn't walk into my house until 2:00 in the morning.
Unbelievable.
With everything that I had to go through.
4.5 hours.
4.5 hours to get back to.
What was the airport you flew into?
I flew into JFK.
Okay.
And understand, setting aside the passport part, all right, so let's set that aside. That trip should be like an hour 15, and that was about 3 hours of that time was trip, just fucking trying to get home. And this is where, there's the culture shock. Okay, this isn't just an American thing. I mean, this is some of what I'm talking about is a New York thing, but other places in America certainly have problems like this. Maybe New York has it a little more than others, but certainly not more than places like San Francisco or LA. You get so used to being surrounded by people who are angry, people who are walking around with untreated mental illness, that if you live here, you just don't really pay attention to. You don't even notice it. Like, you just take that as normal. That you got people like yelling about shit over in this seat. And you got this person seems very angry on the phone. And then you got this person is just ranting and raving to themselves. But they're, most mentally ill people, they're not a threat. So it just becomes background noise for you if you live in New York. That you're going to be sitting on a subway car and there's a better than even chance that at least one person is going to be visibly mentally ill. And possibly more than one. And that's what it was, man. I'm riding back to Harlem, and you have people who are, just rambling, and talking to themselves. And, after a month of being in these countries where they have universal health care, it's not that they don't have mental illness, although I would argue probably they don't have it to the degree that we do, because, it's all of a piece. Like, you have universal health care, you have certain basic guarantees of minimal levels of support in the society.
right.
You don't have as many mentally ill people, and if you do, they're not just rambling on the subway like that with nobody taking them somewhere to get help, right? Where they're just wandering around without any assistance like that. So yeah, man, coming back from, and I'm not saying, oh, it's utopia over there. They have their own problems, certainly. For example, although this is something as a left show, I don't think anyone would take terrible exception to. What you may have heard about how often you have transit strikes there. Yeah. Okay, if I had not gone to the outer islands of Venice the day that I did, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because the Vaporettos, the water buses, they went on strike the next day. And then when I was in Greece, the next to last day I was in Greece, the buses went on strike. So yeah, man, like, they do have these, inconveniences, but I'll tell you, man, if it's going to take me 3 hours to get home, I'd rather feel like it's because I'm fucking supporting labor than because all the money in my society has gone to Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, and there's nothing left to fix the fucking train
to
tracks.
make anything else run. Yeah, exactly.
And the final point, look, Italy, Greece, what do they have? The fucking GDP of the tri-state area at best. For those who don't know, that we call that Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York.
I think it's actually Connecticut. New York,
Connecticut?
New Jersey, Connecticut, yeah. Because that's where the money is.
Oh, yeah.
There's not much money in, like, middle eastern Pennsylvania. Like, yeah.
Well, they do have Philly, but all right, fair enough. Okay, so tri-state area. Like, I would be surprised if Italy or Greece has a GDP that exceeds those three states combined, right? Greece, those fucking trains, man. They were there when they were supposed to be. I didn't see any fucking infrastructure bullshit. There was no rerouting. You got to go here to get to here and do this. Same thing in Italy. Everything ran okay. Everything went all right. Because there's money in the system. It's not that they have more money than we do. It's how it's distributed. They actually put money into their infrastructure. And again, I know they have problems there. They have collapsing demographics and population. But that's kind of a separate issue. That's a general Western problem on the whole, that doesn't really go back to their system. In terms of their system, look, I'm in one of the richest cities on earth, New York City, and the fucking it's worse than, I've been to 3 countries now that are not advanced Western industrialized countries. They all ran better in terms of their infrastructure than America does. So it's just incredible to see that, especially because of the way I was traveling. I was on their buses and trains a lot, right? I'm going from this city to that city. I'm going to this museum and that museum. So I was really interacting with their services. And I'm telling you, man, like, this country, when you come back from that, I'm not talking about, of course, you're on vacation. It's not like living someplace. Of course. But I'm just saying, I dealt with their infrastructure quite a lot. And to come back to the richest nation on earth and one of the richest cities on earth, and to see what a fucking dystopian shithole it is compared to these places that have far less resources than we do. It's not something I didn't know, but it almost stood out to me more than it did when I came back from India. Because India, it's such a completely different place. It's apples and oranges. You don't feel like you can compare those things, right? It's just a completely different culture. But Greece, Italy, it's the assumptions of how things run are, within the same family. So it's easy to make a comparison. And the comparison does not favor our country. Although I can already anticipate the jokes about the trains running on time in Italy, but they just do.
Yeah, they just do. Exactly.
They just do.
Folks, we got 379 here in the YouTube chats, 108 over in the Rumble chat. Nice crowd filing in here on a Friday morning. We do need the algorithm's help on Friday mornings because Friday mornings are not prime YouTube viewership time. So please do hit that like button wherever you are on YouTube or on Rumble. Please hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Let's see if we can get to 13,000 subscribers by the end of this stream. We should be able to do that. We start the stream at 12,991. So 9 more. And we are at 13K.
Oh, let me show the one penis that won't get us kicked off YouTube.
Yeah.
We have a new guest from Florence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There we go. There's David.
And I gotta say, man, I'm a little insulted that Michelangelo made him uncircumcised.
Yeah.
David was a nice Jewish boy.
All righty, let's get going here. We have a lot of stuff to get to today, a lot of stories to share. Let's start out with the one story that, of course, everyone is talking about all over the place. Wherever you go, people just cannot stop talking about the election results in Slovakia. This is from Al Jazeera. Slovakia's Populist Party opposed to Ukraine aid wins votes. This is from Al Jazeera. The left-wing former Prime Minister Robert Fico has promised to end military aid for Ukraine, but smaller parties will be key to forming a coalition. Now, this was from Al Jazeera. This was one of the only headlines that you could find talking about this that did not emphasize pro-Putin Prime Minister Robert Fico elected. Almost every other mainstream outlet made sure to put in their headline that this guy is essentially a Putin puppet. Al Jazeera does mention that he has spoken more favorably of Russia than his opposition parties, but there's reason for that, as we will get into in just a moment here. The Populist Party of former Prime Minister Robert Fico that wants to stop military aid to Ukraine and is critical of the European Union and NATO has won Slovakia's election, results showed on Saturday. SMER/SSD Party, that's some name. SMERSSD, that's some name for a party. That sounds like the new COVID variant, more than a political party. Scored 23.3%, beating the centrist Progressive Slovakia PS party that garnered 17% of the vote. The Slovak Statistics Office said early on Sunday, after completing the count of 99.98% of the votes from some 6,000 polling stations. Saturday's vote was a test for the small Eastern European country's support for neighboring Ukraine in its war with Russia. The 59-year-old Fico has promised that Slovakia, one of Europe's biggest donors to Ukraine as a share of its gross domestic product, will not send, quote, a single round of ammunition to Ukraine and has called for better relations with Russia. Analysts predict a Fico government could radically change Slovakia's foreign policy to resemble that of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, straining a fragile unity in the EU and NATO on opposing Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. Fico's views reflect traditionally warm sentiments towards Russia amongst many Slovaks. So this really forms the second sort of anti-NATO government within NATO. Obviously, Viktor Orban has criticized the continuous funding of the Ukraine war, and now it seems as though Slovakia has voted in a government that will take a similar posture. Now, the New York Times asked, what will an anti-NATO win in an EU nation mean for Ukraine? In much of Europe, the election in Slovakia was seen as a bellwether of mainstream support for Ukraine in its war with Russia, but voters seemed most concerned with pocketbook issues. So the New York Times writes, the vice president of the European Union's executive arm in Brussels, Vera Jourova, a Czech politician responsible for digital policy, called last week on digital platforms like Facebook and TikTok to do more to blunt what she describes as Russia's multi-million euro weapon of mass manipulation ahead of elections in Slovakia and in Poland in mid-October. The Slovak vote, she said, was a test case for Russia's ability to influence voters' choices through online disinformation. So you see, these campaigns are not at all unique to America. Slovakia has deep pools of genuine sympathy for Russia stretching back to the 19th century, when an early Slovak nationalist politician and writer, Ludovic Stur, despairing of the Austro-Hungarian Empire's grip on the region, looked to Russia, a fellow Slavic nation, for help. He suggested that land inhabited by Slovaks be absorbed by the Russian Empire. Okay, so there you have it. So then, was it Russian manipulation of public sentiments that tipped the scale, or was it just genuine public sentiments? They go on to write, Russia has worked hard to strengthen these historical sympathies through pro-Russian media outlets and groups like Bratza Brata, or Brother for Brother, a belligerent motorcycle gang affiliated with the Kremlin-sponsored Night Wolves biker group in Russia, which has an influential presence on social media. Okay, so now this is a biker gang's Facebook group that is responsible for swinging the election. Yes. A GlobeSec survey in March.
It's always funny when they get into these things, because it's like basically they accuse countries that are villain of the week or the decade of the century, countries that we want to smear, of acting in their self-interest and trying to push their interests through diplomatic means and through soft power. What exactly do you think we do?
Right. Exactly.
When we do it, it's okay. When they do it, it's nefarious.
Right. Of course. The GlobeSec survey in March of public opinion across Eastern and Central Europe found 51% of Slovaks believed either Ukraine or the West to be primarily responsible for the war. The figure is much lower in other Eastern European countries. Well, that number is still fairly low for such a, historically pro-Russian country. I mean, it's about half and half. And the winning party only received 23% of the vote. It was a plurality of the vote. So it's not like NATO got routed there, but they did get beat, and that's just one more domino to fall in terms of public support for the war in Ukraine, not just here in America, but around Europe. Poland announced a few weeks ago that they were not sending them any of the new weapons that they got in. They were basically sending them the scraps that they had left to send. Countries are running out of weapons to send to Ukraine, and we're only a year and a half in. Exactly. So the election here is, significant in that sense, and it's also significant in the sense that once again, our press blames the specter of Russian disinformation campaigns. I mean, what they are complaining about is that people's minds are influenced by what media they consume. And so their solution is we have to cut people off from the wrong kinds of media. And that's what they tried to do here in the run-up to the race. And it may have worked to a certain extent, just not enough to win. Like I said, Fico only got 23.3% of the vote. It wasn't like he routed them.
Well, and what's so foolish about all of this is I think anyone can stick their finger in the wind and see which way it's blowing. The future is with politicians like Orban and like the winner here. You've opened the door to censorship and suppression as a legitimate political tactic. What do you think people who ideologically, and I'm not referring necessarily to this politician, I don't know them well enough to say this about them, but if you're talking about right-wing nationalism generally, they've tended to be pretty sympathetic to the idea of censorship, right? I mean, historically, it's been the role of the left to fight against their censorious tendencies. How are you going to fight it now? How are you going to fight it? You have lost all moral legitimacy on this issue. Even the ACLU has offered up its legitimacy on this issue to its rich liberal donors. So how are you going to fight back when they take over? And they are taking over one country, one legislature at a time. The future is with these kinds of politics. I think that's very obvious at this point. The liberal class knows it, And I think that's a big part of why they are more and more resorting to anti-democratic tactics in their claims to defend democracy, because they know they are so loathed and despised that it's the only card they have to play.
Yeah, and just one more thing I just want to emphasize here. This guy is on the left. He is described as a populist in this Al Jazeera headline. In all of the American press, he is called a pro-Putin or pro-Russian figure. They don't mention whether he's left.
You see, that's why I didn't want to jump to conclusions, because I don't know this party or this politician.
Right, but he's actually a left-wing guy, but he's a populist left-wing guy, just like we are, and so he has a similar critique of the Ukraine war that a lot of populist right people happen to share as well. But if you read most press outlets, if you read their coverage of this, they will really bury the fact that he's on the left, right? Because they want to paint every critic of the Ukraine war as a Trumper, as a Putin, or as a Bolsonaro, right? All that shit. Orban.
That's what they do with everything. I mean, if you challenge them on anything, you're a right winger, you're a white supremacist, you're a Nazi. I mean, that's why I wanted to cover it. It was a little side jaunt, but that's why I wanted to cover that Vox article, because it was such a tour de force in the way that these people think. Right? They write an entire article about the rising right wing without ever using the word economics.
Right.
Not once. The entire article. There is absolutely no explanation that they are willing to entertain other than insecure white people who feel displaced by rising non-white groups. They don't even consider any other explanation for Trump.
Right. No, absolutely. I got some chats to get to. Nancy over on Rumble says, good rainy Friday morning from Fishkill, New York. I don't know if you know Nancy, but I'm from Newburgh originally, right across the river from you there. So good to see a Hudson Valley viewer in the house. Rebel Seer over on Rumble, who's a member over on Rumble, so thank you, Rebel Seer, says a worker just died in a sinkhole here in San Francisco. Infrastructure falling apart, collapsing. Wow, that's a
is that down by the wharf? Because I remember when I was, I drove a horse and carriage there for a while, and that was part of my tour, because Fisherman's Wharf, that's all fucking landfill, man. That's all just garbage, like Lower Manhattan. It's just like garbage they threw in the water, and they were saying it was sinking then.
Yeah, I haven't heard that story, but could be. Pat Donahue, thank you for the €5. I love Cornell, but this is self-sabotage at this point. You can't beat the duopoly with independent campaigns. Yeah, we will get to that for sure. That's coming up in a little while.
We'll get there.
Absolutely. Abiding. 71, thanks for the 99-cent super sticker, my friend. Appreciate it, as always. Eric Husso, on my way to Indio for Power Trip Festival, listening to Do Dissidents, Iron Maiden, and Guns N' Roses tonight. Oh, wow, look at that.
Nice.
Bill.
Yeah. Facebook AI has got my number as far as that goes, because they were pushing me to buy those tickets.
They were pushing. Where is that?
Isn't it a tour? I think it's a tour. I don't think it's
no, but
I don't know. I don't know where.
Oh, so it's not a festival. It's a tour that's coming, I guess, close to New York.
That's the impression I got, because they're trying to sell it to me.
Got it. Makes sense. Eric Husso, again, thanks for the $2. Also, has anyone asked Kyle, what is a man? Yeah, indeed. All righty, folks. We will get to some more super chats a little bit later on. So here's our next little mini story of the day before we get into the meteor ones. This next story has to do with Drew Barrymore's show returning. Before we get into that, though, it is October, which means we are foregoing book recommendations for the month and instead doing some horror movie recommendations. And since this is a story about Drew Barrymore getting her comeuppance, I thought no better horror film to recommend today than Scream. So Scream is one of my favorite movies in its genre. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Scream is both a sort of it's satire without being spoof. It satirizes the horror genre without spoofing it. It still delivers the goods as a genuinely scary and suspenseful slasher film. And so I think it's absolutely wonderful. I think the first one is great. They're all very, very good. Even the some of the later ones that have come out are entertaining. But the great thing about this movie is that it both takes the piss out of the genre while at the same time really works as a genre film. And of course, that opening scene with Drew Barrymore is one of the best scenes of its kind, one of the best opening scenes of any slasher film ever. I don't think there's any doubt about that. In fact, that might even top certain people's lists. And so Scream is our pick of the day, and it's a classic Halloween type movie. I mean, it's not kind of sci-fi, it's not kind of suspense. No, it is a straight slasher horror
Halloween thing.
Straight up Halloween thing.
Keaton is preparing you for the kind of shit I'm going to come up with.
Yeah.
It's
Halloween.
It's not about buxom Nazis. It's
no, straightforward white people getting stabbed in the suburbs. That's what Halloween is all about, and that's what Scream gives you.
That's actually the translation of Sam Hain, isn't it?
Yeah,
White people getting stabbed in the suburbs.
White people getting stabbed in the suburbs. Yes. Cog Vance now became a monthly supporter over on Rumble. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you. So thank you so much. All right. So Drew Barrymore back in the news. Obviously, the writer's strike is now settled, but before the writer's strike was settled, Drew Barrymore announced that she would be crossing the picket line and resuming her show, which I did not even know existed until she announced that she would be crossing the picket line to start it up again. Then she got backlash for it, and she thought better of it, so she went back on her plans to restart the show. But I mentioned when I covered this last, that was one of the shows that I did half solo. Are the writers actually going to come back? Like, once you cross the picket line, once you signal to them that you will just betray them in their moment of struggle, can you really count on them to come back? It seems Bill Maher got away with it because Bill Maher's show is bigger and more established and more successful. That's probably a much cushier and much steadier
He has
gig.
a different audience.
Well,
His audience wouldn't be as likely to hold him accountable for that.
Well, no, but I'm not talking about Bill Maher. No, Bill Maher actually did turn his back. Bill Maher actually did decide to delay the return of his show until the strike was settled.
He did, yeah.
But what I'm saying
But I'm talking, it looks like this could kill her show.
Well,
and I don't think Bill Maher's audience is as likely to be like, that's it, I'm not watching Bill Maher because of that, as hers is.
Well, I also think, I mean, there could be an element of that, but I also think Bill Maher's show is just a more established show. I mean, that show's been on the air for 20 years. If you're writing on that show now, it's a more stable gig, right? Whereas Drew Barrymore, like, are we really going to stick it out with her over a show that's liable to get canceled in 8 months anyway? Probably not. Or, as it turns out now, definitely not. The Drew Barrymore show writers declined to return. This is an exclusive by The Hollywood Reporter. The Drew Barrymore show is once again readying its return, though a trio of WGA writers have chosen not to return to their old gig. Barrymore found herself in hot water last month when she announced that her daytime talk show would make its fourth season debut without its striking writers. A week later, after Barrymore faced backlash and at least a few panicked guest cancellations, she revealed that she'd be reversing course, pausing the show's return until the WGA strike concluded. But with the strike now over, the show is set to come back on October 16th, and those writers, Chelsea White, Christina Keenan, and Liz Coe, have declined an offer to return with it. According to sources, the production is now interviewing new writers and will be in compliance with the Guild. As for White, Keenan, and Coe, all three were visible and vocal in their protest during the show's initial return to production in mid-September. The trio of women who shared the title co-head writer and have been with the series since season 1 could be seen picketing outside of Drew's Manhattan studio on multiple days with signs that read, "Honk if you love union labor," or "Drew's News strikes." On September 11th, which was the show's first day back in production, they told The Hollywood Reporter that they'd found Drew was returning not from their boss or colleagues, but rather via audience ticket giveaways that had been posted on social media. It's a bummer to hear that the show is going back because it sends a message that union writers are not valuable, White told The Hollywood Reporter that morning. Keenan added, "I understand that everybody has to do what they feel is best for them. For me and the WGA writers on the show, it's important for us to stick with our union. We deserve a fair contract, so we are here today outside Asked at that time whether they planned to return to the show once the strike was resolved, White simply said, maybe, no comments. Drew Barrymore caused herself some reputational and relational harm by threatening to cross that picket line. And I had a feeling that some of these writers were not going to come back. And it turns out all three of the main writers are now gone. The show comes back in 10 days. So, Russell, you're back in town. You've done some writing. Maybe you should go apply to be a writer at the Drew Barrymore show. They're hiring.
Yeah, I don't think they'd like what I come up with. You know, I read a book a while back. I don't usually write these kind of inside Hollywood kind of books. It just doesn't, like, I don't like movies like that as a rule. You know, these shows about shows and movies about movies. As a rule, I don't really like that kind of thing. It strikes me as like the ultimate narcissistic gesture from people in that industry. Hey, let's make a movie about us.
Right.
That'll be great. You know, unless it's like Babylon where it's in period. It's not really about the industry. It's about this period in that industry. That's different.
Did you see Babylon?
I'm like halfway through it and I love it.
It was great. It was fucking awesome.
I'm shocked at how good it is. I only turned it on because of you.
Yeah. Well, the first hour and a half is probably the best.
Because you strongly recommended it. Yeah. I checked it out.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so you know, Drew Barrymore, God knows how much fucking money she's made. She's acting since E.T., right? She's from this legendary theatrical family, the Barrymores.
Yes. Yep.
But this book I read by a producer woman, Julia Phillips, one of the very few things I've ever read about how things really work inside Hollywood. And it's kind of what Jackie Mason said at one point. I don't know how anybody could live in Hollywood without owning a Mercedes if you're not Jewish. If you're Jewish, you could say, you think I'm going to own a German car?
Right, yeah, exactly.
But this book really got into how that's a big thing, projecting success to try to get your next job. Like, you can't, once people smell that, you know, there's blood in the water, your whole career can go down. So there's this really, really amped up need to keep up with the Joneses, and that's expensive. So you wonder, why would Drew Barrymore, doesn't she have enough fucking money? Like, why would you feel such a need to put your show back on the air? And that's my speculation. You know, like, yeah, me, you, most people, the amount of money she probably has in the bank, we'd never work again. We'd be done. Right? Fuck the show. Fuck you, guy. Fuck you, deviant,
right?
Depraved fucks. Yeah. We're going fishing.
Right.
We're out of here. But for these people, man, you got to have the newest car, right? You got to have that money to go when everybody's going to Maui this weekend. You've got to be one of the people who can afford to be there for that gig, right? There's this whole network of parties and things that you need to attend that are expensive, these retreats. So you wonder, why are these people so greedy? I mean, that's why I think, because otherwise, why would you do that? Why? Now, technically, she wasn't strike breaking because daytime talk, it's like under a different union. Like, technically, she wasn't crossing the picket line, but I don't get the impression that she's fundamentally stupid like you get with some of these people. She had to have known the optics on that are probably not good. So why would you can't just wait a couple months? You're acting,
I mean, all these people
you're like a
do.
fucking embryo. You don't have money in a hedge fund.
All these people had to do was just stay home and chill. Just hang out in your penthouse apartment or your Beverly Hills mansion and just wait the thing out. I also think there's an element, if you're someone like Drew Barrymore, who's just, you know, born into this very famous family, I don't think it necessarily occurs to you how easy you have it just sitting at home, because that's just all you've ever known, right? So, like, that's your default. And so the drive to go out there and work and produce and, earn more so that, yes, you keep up with the latest status trends in your industry and in your town. I think that's all part of it. But I had a strong feeling that either Barrymore or Bill Maher were going to have a tough time bringing the writers back. And I think part of the reason why Bill's writers came back is because that show is such an established hit show. I mean, that's been on the air for 2 decades now. and it's a great gig. And from what I hear, his writers are paid better than most in the TV industry. So I guess he dodged a bullet, but Drew Barrymore, alas, did not. So we'll see. I don't know who's going to be tuning into the Drew Barrymore show on October 16th to see how she gets by without writers. Must-see television, right?
Well, but I honestly think also that's part of why that stuff coming out about Ellen was so fatal. Live by the socially isolated, lonely, Twitter obsessive audience, die by that audience. Right? I mean, that's the audience for these people. And as soon as they get a negative story about you, that's it, because they're gonna jump all over it. You wanted to cater to that audience. Well, it's a very fickle audience. It's an audience that's constantly looking to burn a witch, and you're the witch this week.
Indeed. Folks, you can help support our show by going to patreon.com/do dissidents and becoming a subscriber. You can also go to dodissidents.substack.com. We added some more patrons since our previous show. On the Friday mornings, sorry, I just got a funny tweet at me, but I won't mention it now. On Friday mornings, we do not have Jake, our producer, and so I have to update the scroll next time to get our newest patrons in there. But Rebel Seer, Jake put you in there. At least he told me he did, so hopefully you're on there today. And we also have a few others who have joined in the past couple days. Nancy J and Zach G, you should be on there. Eric G is now a patron. Derek A.D. and Les is on there. You guys will be on the scroll next time. Eric G is the editor, apparently, of antiwar.com, and he's now a patron. He emailed me a very nice email saying that he was supporting us, and I said, that's an honor because I'm a fan of your outlet there. So that's pretty cool. Go to patreon.com/do dissidents or dodissidents.substack.com. You can support the show. We are getting there. Like I said, our goal is to be at 500 by the end of the year so we could start January off working 4 days a week at this. We are now, if my math is correct, we're at about 325, somewhere in that ballpark. So we're getting there slowly but surely. But if you guys can help us out, that helps us out a great deal. That is what will make that fourth show possible. So we hope to be doing this 4 times a week heading into the election year 2024. You can go to patreon.com/do dissidents. Pardon me, or dodissidents.substack.com to sign up. Yassine Miller, thank you for the $5. Good morning, guys, and this one is specifically for Russell's labor support comment. Americans need to be educated on social issues. Thanks, Russell. Yeah, it is true. We don't, said that one was for Russell. Now here I am responding to it. But yeah, look, one of the things that we're going to start.
Which comment about the trains?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Or just the dysfunction. We're going to start doing maybe a semi-regular segment, my PSYOP Sunday segment, where we'll talk about PSYOPs, just little things that I consider the system's way of fucking with you. And, a lot of what Russell's talking about has to do with that. Just little inconveniences that the system imposes upon us on a daily basis that you don't experience elsewhere.
I want to tell a quick story, and this illustrates quite a lot in keeping with what I was saying. All right, so Pompeii was like my dream place to see, right? And I fucked up and I got on the wrong train going there, so I lost some of my time there. So I stretched it to the absolute last minute where they're kicking you out of the fucking place, or you're going to wind up having to hide out in an ancient whorehouse and sleep there. So I left like the last possible minute, and I was not going to make my train. I was on a train going to the main regional train, and I called them up literally 20 minutes before my train was going out, told them I wasn't going to make it, and asked if I could change it. This woman, who didn't even speak great English, worked with me, changed the time of my train. Like, by that time, 15 minutes before my train's going to go out. No charge. No charge at all. And as an American, I looked at that and I said, okay, I'm used to being treated as a profit center. That's how you get treated in America. Right. They don't treat you like a human. What she did there, that's very human. Oh, this guy's going to miss his train. We have open seats on the next train. Doesn't cost us anything. It's not sold out. Let's just put him on the next train. They would never do that here. Not in a million years. At the very least, you would have to pay a penalty. Good chance you'd have to buy a new ticket. Nope, sorry, non-refundable. You're going to have to buy a ticket for the next train. That right there tells you a lot about the difference in cultural attitudes.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
differences in the way the system functions and the kind of people that the system produces. Yeah, man, if you got a system where people are getting squeezed all the time, of course you got people fucking acting all crazy on the subway. You know, people who are more vulnerable, they crack. They crack under that strain and under that stress of constantly getting treated that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a huge part of why when you go to another place, just the vibe is different. The feel is different.
It's better.
Right?
It's
Yeah,
better.
absolutely.
It's better. So much less tension and anger when you
Right.
leave the United States. I'm not saying every place. Again, you know, I haven't been to places that are in horrible circumstances, to, you know, civil wars, but outside of that, outside of those very extreme circumstances, man, I've never been to a place that had as bad a vibe as the United States, that had such bad energy.
Well, Pete Sweet agrees. Thanks for the $5. Good morning, Disillusioned Dissidents. Welcome back, Russell. Couldn't agree more with the bird's eye view of the U.S. from here in Bali. That's right.
I've heard very good things about Bali.
Yassine Miller. By the way, you guys still don't read private Patreon messages. Shall I not use it for my longer messages? Please let me know. Appreciate it. No, I read your last message, but if there's not like a question there, then you know what I mean. What am I supposed to do? Do it like I read them. Some of them, you know, I take as comments. If you want to do a long message and you're a Patreon member, what a lot of people do is they'll comment on the links to the streams. This way, like if you have something that you want to share with the rest of the patrons, you can post it there, and this way, you know, there's like a little forum there. You know, it's almost like a mini kind of like private social media club there. So for extended things, I would probably post them there since everybody else will see it, and you can get a dialogue going. So I would recommend trying that. But thank you, Yassine. Cog Vance, is this Nicole? Are you Nicole? Because I know we have a Nicole Vance here on YouTube. With a Rumble rant, trying to get away from YouTube, had to join over here. So you joined on Rumble. Thank you very much for that. Folks, the best way to keep us over there on Rumble for as long as possible is to hit us up with those Rumble rants. That's what makes these morning shows possible, is the Super Chats and the Rumble rant. So thank you very much, Cog Vance. We appreciate that. And for the evening shows, we do have Jake in the house, who is able to field them for me. Now I have to keep two windows open myself, but I'm happy to do double duty on Friday mornings until we get it in the budget to start putting Jake on the payroll, and then we'll make him be here on Friday morning. We'll force him to be here on Friday mornings for the for the high wage of $7.25 an hour.
Hey, we're paying the legal wage here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to figure out how to get you to make coffee, or we could pay you $2.75.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. If you work for tips, we can give you the tip wage. Exactly. Folks, let's do one of our main segments here of the morning. We are at 601 viewers on YouTube, 143 over on Rumble. Great crowd for this Friday morning.
65 more to the maiden.
That's right. Let's hit that like button.
If anybody
Let's get
wants
some
to
more in
really
here.
break out their wallet, $50 gets a cowbell.
That's right. Now we have the sound effects working
Got
again.
the cowbell. We got our singing bowl.
All the tools are back
set
here.
up.
Yeah,
We're set up.
I forgot all about those, actually. It's nice to have those back. Alrighty, folks. So this segment involves a little bit of a recap. We obviously remember on Wednesday we covered the protest at Bernie Sanders' office by Code Pink. That was in response to this Bernie Sanders tweet. Largely, I look forward to seeing Congress provide in the very near future financial support for Ukraine, which is valiantly struggling against Russian aggression. Okay, we covered all this. This is just a quick refresher course because this is kind of a sequel segment, if you will. So Code Pink showed up at Bernie's office, and Bernie's staffers had them escorted out by the cops. They got booked, and they got released later that day. And upon their release, Marjorie Taylor Greene caught up to them and tweeted out the following, along with a photo with some of these Peace protesters. The war in Ukraine must end. Today I met brave Code Pink activists who protested for peace in Bernie Sanders' office. He had 11 of them arrested. Peace and free speech shouldn't be a partisan issue. We don't agree on most things, but we do agree Congress should stop fueling the war in Ukraine. I thought that was a great thing that she did, and it was not without political risk. Don't forget, a lot of Marjorie Taylor Greene's base are, conservative rural Georgia Republicans. They probably see these Code Pink people as these dirty, freaky, commie hippies, like they don't love Code Pink. They don't have a good image in their mind of Code Pink. And Marjorie Taylor Greene blasting out a photo like this with a nice post complimenting them and, it seems to be, in good faith, reaching out in a way that suggests there is some potential for a partnership that transcends ideology, right? She was taking a little bit of a risk. I'm sure a lot of her voters are not necessarily too happy seeing her, yucking it up with Code Pink protesters. But she thought, hey, some people aren't going to like this, but the larger point is what matters. And so, nice little photo. And it helps make the point, hey, this is what we said in our last segment. You show up to Bernie Sanders' office.
It's like a photo from a 50 Shades of Grey book club meeting.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. You show up to Bernie Sanders' office because he is ostensibly the politician who is most accountable to your movement, because he's the politician who you are most aligned with, and his staffers have you escorted out of the building in handcuffs. Then you run into Marjorie Taylor Greene. She tracks you down and asks for a photo. So what better way to make the point, hey, where they're protesting, we can't control which politicians like us and which politicians don't, how people react. And so nothing at all to apologize for, neither on Marjorie Taylor Greene's part or on Code Pink's part. However, Code Pink must have gotten a flood of emails from their dysfunctional lib moron donor base. And yes, I'm sorry, I have to go there because this is absolutely fucking pathetic. They put out, there has been some confusion. So this was the next morning. There has been some confusion about an image that was taken with Code Pink volunteers and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. MTG opportunistically approached our volunteers in a parking lot on the Hill, and she requested they take a photo together. What do you mean opportunistically approached our volunteers? What the fuck? I mean, sorry. Fuck you.
Who posed and smiled for a camera.
Right.
I know she's a big supporter of the Second Amendment, but I am not under the impression that she was armed at the time that she asked to take that picture.
Right.
So what the fuck are you talking about?
Right. What? She didn't compel. Right. What? She exhorted them
photo
into taking
bomb
a picture.
them.
Right. No. It was obviously a consensual event there. Right. They go on. Our volunteers weren't sure how to respond and immediately reached out to us about what happened after the fact. Yeah, they looked really nervous in this picture here, right? They immediately reached out and said, hey, Medea, we have a huge problem here. Huge problem here. A politician with national name ID took a picture with us and tweeted out something nice about us, which is 100 times what fucking Bernie Sanders did to us. He put us in fucking jail. Right? So the good progressive who we came to lobby because we thought he may be susceptible to our message, he had us thrown in fucking jail. And then we had this other politician, the icky one, the right wing, the MAGA one. She came and took a picture with us and tweeted out something nice. This is an emergency. What do we do? This is a PR disaster. They tweet out, we will continue to organize against war and demand our resources be reinvested into human needs like housing, universal health care, and education. There is a difference between being anti-war and not wanting funding for Ukraine war. To be anti-war, you must be an internationalist. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Let me just ask, to be anti-war, you must be an internationalist.
Like Bernie?
Yeah, exactly. I would have something to ask you here, okay? What accomplishments can Code Pink point to that would give me confidence that they know what constitutes real anti-war activism? Notice I said what accomplishments, not how long you've been doing this, because I know people are going to come at me for this. How dare you criticize Code Pink? They've been at this for 21 years. Okay, fine. To what end? To what end? To what end? What have they actually accomplished in those 21 years? And I'm a reasonable person. By accomplished, I don't mean which war have they ended, right? I'm not saying that because they didn't get the government to pull out of Iraq, that they are a failure. I mean, for example, let me ask a question here. What politicians have you sent to Washington that represent your views on matters of war and peace? It seems like Bernie Sanders was the guy you thought you had in there, and even him you didn't elect there. He was in Washington before you even formed as an organization. They date back to 2002. So what have you actually gotten done? How far have you actually moved the ball down the field in terms of advancing an anti-war agenda? What have you gotten done to the point where you can lecture people on what constitutes being actually anti-war? Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene's not really anti-war. She's anti-Ukraine war. She's anti this war, which is 100 times what I could say for Bernie Sanders. So why are you embarrassed to have appeared in a photo with someone who's doing exactly what you want in that situation, which is grabbing you, talking to you, and tweeting about you in a positive light, even adding you in the tweet, maybe getting you some exposure to a new audience of followers, a new potential base of supporters that you don't normally reach. Why? Because you're a bunch of dysfunctional, neurotic, liberals who deliberately isolate themselves in a political corner and do not appear before any of these other types of audiences. So what the fuck is the problem? What is the problem? The problem is a lot of these organizations are cosplay organizations, as Russell was saying. They exist to exist, whether it's Code Pink, whether it's the Green Party. They have bases of support. And once they hear it from the people who write them checks, they feel we had to apologize. How fucking dare you apologize for appearing with Marjorie Taylor Greene in a photo? You should be doing the exact opposite. You should have retweeted that photo, and you should have said, shame on Bernie Sanders for being out-lefted by Marjorie Taylor Greene on World War III. That's what you should have done if you actually were serious about being anti-war. Okay, let's see some reactions. Jimmy Dore says, I would unite with anybody to do right and nobody to do wrong. That's a tweet from, that's a quote.
Yeah.
That's a famous tweet by Frederick Douglass, though. That's a quote from Frederick Douglass. Be more like Frederick Douglass and less like Code Pink. There goes Jimmy once again quoting dead white men like Frederick Douglass, I don't know when that guy's going to learn. Courtney Conover, I thought I'd give you a little shout out here. Courtney is a fan, friend, and supporter of the show. I'm a real anti-war
She bought
activist.
the cowbell.
Yes, she bought the cowbell. Exactly. I'm a real anti-war activist. This is her after the Trump indictments, right? 2024 White House crossed out prison, walking around the big loser banner. There's Medea Benjamin. And here's what I tweeted. 8 Republicans accomplished more in the past week for the anti-war cause than your entire organization has in its 21-year history, and yet you're acting like you know what it really means to be anti-war. Laughable and pathetic. I stand by that 100%. Stand by that 100%. And I know it's harsh because I know Medea Benjamin has a lot of supporters and I know she does a lot of legwork and a lot of groundwork, but I'm sorry. This is fucking bullshit. This is fucking bullshit. This is why you fail. This is why your organization has fuck all to show for itself after 21 years in existence. Because not only are you unconcerned with making a broad impact, you're averse to it. The fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene gave you a good publicity quote should be something you tout from the rooftops, and you use it to shame the politicians who you thought were on your side, but aren't. You don't have anybody in Washington on your side because you suck shit at organizing, and that's the fucking truth. I know you have good intentions. Fine. But these are very serious times right now between the 2024 election coming up where there are actual opportunities for third parties to actually make a difference. And we see Cornel West and the Greens just totally shitting the bed. And now you have Code Pink protesting the war, getting arrested outside of progressive Bernie Sanders' office, and then disavowing Marjorie Taylor Greene for actually paying them a modicum of fucking respect.
I mean, that said it all, those things happening one after the other.
Exactly. No one's home here. Who's driving the car here? Nobody. It's pathetic. There has to be direction. There has to be precision. There has to be execution. There has to be some sense of strategy and building of forward momentum. And instead we have virtue signaling bullshit from do-gooder organizations like the Green Party and Code Pink.
Yeah, there's always been a certain amount of this in NGOs, non-governmental organizations, not-for-profits. There's always been a certain amount of building a career off the fundraising so that the fundraising becomes the point in the end, so that there's no real motivation to actually solve the problem that the organization is ostensibly supposed to be about. So I think you have some of that going on here. You know what it reminds me of? When you work in like, independent theater, you have all these theaters or you used to anyway, where everybody knows everybody and everybody knows who the artists are on the circuits and they're doing their shows and, 25 people see them. But people just like being a part of that, right? And so they talk, oh, did you see the show that Jason did? Oh, it was brilliant. You have to see that. And, it's not reaching anybody beyond like that little crowd. But they don't really care because they like the lifestyle, right? Now, that is harmless. That's like being into the hammered dulcimer, right? Who cares? That's, live your truth, whatever. This is serious. These people are not dealing with their deconstructionist Hamlet. They're fucking, dealing with matters of World War III. And it's unfortunate that you have clowns like this who don't understand the idea of coalition building leading the way. And this is an infectious idea that has really spread throughout our politics, and to be fair, not just on the left, but on the right too, as we just saw with the Kevin McCarthy thing. The idea of working with anyone who disagrees with you on anything has become anathema to a lot of people, right? Like, you just absolutely cannot work with anyone who codes culturally in a way that you don't like, or that the question often comes up, well, would you vote with a fascist to increase the minimum wage? Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Would you work with a fascist group that wanted to come out and support a higher minimum wage? Yeah. I'd argue with them about what I didn't agree on, and I'd work with them on what I did. And for a lot of people, that they can't wrap their heads around that. Look, FDR passed the New Deal
if I could just, sorry,
by working with, let me finish.
Sorry, all right, go ahead.
FDR passed the New Deal working with a lot of loathsome people whose views we would find abhorrent, right? I mean, that's fucking how it works. And when you're talking about World War III, who cares? Who cares? Especially when the institutional so-called left is all in on World War III. You got to take your friends where you can find them. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, no, sorry. I just wanted to write this down so I didn't forget this. The fascists in this case are the ones opposing funding for Nazi battalions in Ukraine.
Yeah,
the fascists in this case want accountability for the money we've already sent to Nazi battalions in Ukraine. And the anti-fascists, the ones who would be very, very pleased. The anti-fascists that Medea Benjamin is sucking up to in this absurd, ridiculous, laughably idiotic photo that she's apparently proud of, this whole getup. The anti-fascists are very, very happy about this. They're the same ones who are covering up for the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline by Joe Biden's government, the destruction of a piece of critical infrastructure by a NATO ally in order to further isolate them and make them more dependent on us than they are on the quote-unquote enemy. So where are they on that? Where is anybody on this? Where are those anti-fascists?
You don't see them saying a word about that.
No.
Well, that's it. All of these liberal organizations wind up being an arm of the Democratic Party, whether it's social, economic, anything else. It's what happened with Justice Democrats, Our Revolution, Me Too, right? I mean, they ended up being so corrupt they had to disband the whole organization. It wasn't they couldn't show their face in public after a while with some of what came out about politicians in the Democratic Party they were covering for, like Joe Biden. It's what always happens with these things, because these organizations, look, it's very difficult for working class people. We don't have the money, we don't have the contacts, we don't tend to come from households where we have experience with setting up the kind of robust infrastructure you need for a not-for-profit that's extremely active. Whereas if you come from a family where your parents are active in the local chapter of the ACLU, right? If you come from a wealthier liberal household, that's the oxygen you breathed growing up. You're much more familiar with those mechanisms and how they work. It's much easier for you to set it up. That's how we keep winding up with these kinds of useless assholes running these kinds of organizations, because it's not something working class people really know how to do or think of doing. And they, even if they think of it, they don't come from those backgrounds, man. They're not really comfortable with the kind of bureaucratic process you need to set up a code pink. That's why we wind up with these fucking libs out front.
Yeah, more like Code Blue, which is what another thing that I tweeted out. Why couldn't you, if you wanted to clarify to your liberal base with, yes, shit lib sensibilities, right? A lot of these people are left-wingers with shit lib sensibilities. And I'm sorry, if you're triggered by a photo with Marjorie Taylor Greene, you are a shit lib at heart. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Like, why would you not work with her on this one issue?
Why the fuck would you think it's
disagree
necessary
with
to
her on other
apologize for
things?
this? How stupid do you have to be? How fucking stupid do you have to be to think it is necessary to apologize for this? You should have tweeted out the exact same thing that she tweeted out. Hey, we disagree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on almost everything but this. She's correct. Peace and free speech shouldn't be a partisan issue. And tag Bernie Sanders, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. Tag all of your quote-unquote progressive allies in Washington and say, aren't you ashamed that you guys had us booked and she took a photo and complimented us? That's how you use an opportunity like this. And say,
not only that,
weak bullshit with the she's a Trump or MAGA fascist. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm so sick of this bullshit. Sick of this bullshit. No time for this bullshit. This is just ludicrous. It's absolutely fucking ludicrous. Ludicrous. You are, as Nick Cruz would say, and he might not say this about Medea Benjamin, so I won't put words in his mouth, but I will borrow his phrase, deeply unserious.
Unserious. Deeply unserious. Hey.
Hey, we made it. Beautiful.
Building on what you're saying there. Okay. You want to talk about how you play politics? Not how you play politics if you want to maintain good relationships with your rich Democrat buddies, which I'm sure most of these people have, which is part of where their limitations come from and who they will and won't pose with and why they felt a need to disown this picture so quickly. But if you want to talk about politics, you actually want to get something out of these scumbags, the AOCs, the Bernie Sanders, cozy up to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Make it clear, well, if you guys don't want us,
right?
They seem to.
Right.
Maybe we need to give them our support.
Exactly. We're here for the cause. We're not here to simp for any politician. We're here for the cause. We show up to Washington, D.C. We're here on a mission. Some people are going to reject us. Some people are going to embrace us. We're open to anyone who wants to take us seriously, and anyone who wants to throw us in fucking jail for peacefully demonstrating outside of their office can go to hell. That's what you say if you're serious.
Right. But they're not. They're not. None of these organizations are, and it's all of a piece. And I think a big part of it is what I'm saying. We don't have enough people like us who start organizations like this. These organizations are pretty much exclusively started by members of the liberal class.
Yes, indeed. All righty, folks. Let's go to some super chats here. We have a lovely donation from Rumble. So, Russell, break out that cowbell.
Oh,
got a $50 donation from Catskill Fever. Thank you, Catskill Fever. Glad to have Russ back in the shithole country. Also, what's going on with the shirt, Keaton? Looks like you should be banging that cowbell. Well, we did bang the cowbell. Got to give us a second. Don't worry. We'll get to it.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
If you're signed up at the $15 or $30 a month Patreon tier, which I assume you are if you're asking us, although I don't recognize your Rumble rant name, the shirts are ordered. I promise. They have been taking a while. I think this is because it's the first batch. It's the first print. So especially if like your size is different from a size that we've ordered in the past. But they've been taking a few weeks, and I hope that they don't continue to take that long. I'm assuming the next rounds of shipments, once we open the store, like to the public, will be quicker. But if you send us an email, I'd be happy to like look into it because they let me track the individual orders, so I could send you an update as to like when it'll be there. So definitely follow up with me. But thank you for the donation. Appreciate it. And we are going to bring our shop online on Sunday. It is ready.
I was going to ask you about that.
It is ready. So Sunday night, we will drop the link and we will have that. Our shop will be open just in time for the holidays. So you can get that Due Dissidence merch.
Be the first kid on your block to get a Due Dissidence mug.
Exactly.
Impress your neighbors. Excite
Indeed.
your kids.
This is from Ellen Jimerson over on Rumble. No, y'all will question the Biden 26 laws narrative. Of course we will. No wall segments have been constructed without overturning environmental and indigenous rights and overlook surveillance, both of which are deadly. Yes, absolutely, Ellen. Absolutely. In fact, one of the first episodes that I ever did on this show was an interview with someone who was involved with a documentary called The River and the Wall, which was a really interesting film. And I don't want to step on the segment, but I'll bring that up when we talk about that later on. Oh, okay. So Catskill Fever. Okay. Okay. So Catskill Fever sent us another Rumble rant. Thank you. And this is the name of the game, folks. You know, if you want to support us on Rumble, the Rumble rants are super helpful in doing that. Catskill Fever, I guess, is not a patron. You said, "What's with my shirt? What the hell is that?" Well, you don't like this shirt? I like this shirt. This has a very Southwestern sort of pastel, color palette going on. I haven't worn this shirt in a while because it's a little heavy. Can't wear the shirt in the summertime. The material's a little thick.
I think that shirt works for him.
I dig it.
Kind of matches his beard and his hair. It's
lucky you gave me $55 because you fucking insulted my shirt that I like very much. But you know what? It's fine. It's all right. It's fine. For the money, you're allowed to insult. You're allowed to insult my fashion sense for the money. But yeah, no, this is just standard button-down shirt. Yeah. This looks like the southern rim of the Grand Canyon. This is the color palette. When you see the southern rim of the Grand Canyon, it's a lot of beiges and pinks and pastel blues and purples. I love this shirt. I'll not apologize for this shirt, but thank you.
I'm gonna cut in with some breaking market news, okay? Because everybody was waiting to see what the jobs report looks like. The U.S. labor market saw this from CNBC. The U.S. labor market saw broad gains in September and a surprisingly strong jobs report that sparked a quick sell-off in the bond market. The strongest sector for job growth in September was leisure and hospitality, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The 96,000 net jobs gained last month was more than the combined total for August and July. So apparently you had 336,000 jobs added in September. So, in the topsy-turvy world of the markets, this is bad news because the Fed is trying to use the blunt instrument of interest rates basically to break the economy, which eventually they will. Like, eventually something's going to break.
That's what they've said.
Right. Yeah. They're trying to cause pain. They're trying to disempower workers. That's why I wanted to bring this up. Like, this is what they want. They're upset that there are a lot of jobs, which gives workers power. That's why you're seeing all these strikes now, within the auto industry and so on. So, bond rates are going very high because they track the interest rates. And so money's going out of the stock market and all of these rich goons are losing their shirts. So, apparently the Fed, it's one case where, generally the Fed is going to bow to the pressure from wealthy interests when the market really starts to hurt. But it looks like he's just going to keep going until the economy breaks. And just to point out, Michael Burry, the big short guy, has put like an insane bet on he shorted the market for the market collapsing by the end of the year.
Interesting. All right. Good news break there. Elizabeth Marshall, thanks for the $2. A lot of my home place, Boston, sits on landfill. Yeah, I heard that about Boston, too.
Oh, yeah? I didn't know that.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Chant of the Moldaya, thanks for the $2. Connecticut's infrastructure, I-95, is a complete shithole. I-95 is a big road. Take that all the way down to Miami. And, yeah, I remember I-95 heading out from the city to New Haven. My mother-in-law had a teaching gig in New Haven for a little while. And, the traffic on there was just unbelievable on a Friday afternoon getting out of the city. Just insane. Everton Wright Jr., thanks for the $5. Same thing I ask West support and his so-called movement project. Where has it been all this time? I only see book and CD sales and movie rolls. That's that. Well, that's next. That is our next segment. So thank you, Everton. We appreciate that feedback and the donation. It's very kind of you. Cool Blue. I consider some organizations a scam. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not going to say Code Pink is a scam. I don't know enough about them to say that. What I know is that this tendency to just self-limit and self-isolate is just absurd. It's just absurd. And nothing could demonstrate it more than their reaction to that Marjorie Taylor Greene photo.
Yeah, and it's not just them. I mean, this is an idea that's infected our politics over the last few decades. Until now, it's to a point that this idea that you can work together on particular issues without agreeing on everything, that idea has just died. And you cannot build a coalition around an issue without working with people you don't agree with. If you need every single fucking person that you work with against the war to think that trans athletes playing in the Olympics is a human right,
Right, exactly.
That's a pretty self-limiting standard.
Exactly. Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Kid Ulysses, YouTube member, you dress better than Vosh anyhow. Thanks. A great compliment from the chat there. That makes me feel a lot better.
That's not a leper with the most fingers compliment.
Thank you for that.
I actually think that shirt's working for him.
I think it does work. Some people in the chat think it works. I think it works. Cog Vance, thanks for the Rumble rant. This tone on Keaton right now, this is why my roommate calls you to the Angry Men show. You watching that Angry Men show again?
I think we're happy warriors.
I think we're happy warriors. That was fun.
We laugh a lot.
Blow up some steam in the morning, right?
Yeah,
why the hell not? Franklin Warsham, thanks for the $10. Appreciate it. Is it a Halloween movie if it takes place solely in the month of October, culminates on Halloween night, and is about the paranormal? I'm beginning to doubt your commitment to Sparkle Motion. Well, yeah, we have a lot of Halloween movies that we're going to be recommending over the course of the month.
I would say most of them will not fit that definition, if any others.
I'm sure a couple others. We'll see. Depends on what the news is. We're trying to tie them into the subject matter of the show. All right, folks, here we go. Cornel West, for now the second time in 4 or 5 months, has changed ballot lines, has changed political parties. Obviously, he launched with the People's Party, very quickly was convinced to switch to the Greens. And now, apparently, he has left the Green Party and is running as an independent. So he tweets out, people are hungry for change. You seem hungry for change. You change parties every few weeks. Seems like you're the hungriest for change that there is. They want good policies.
Excuse me, Charlene. What's today? Tuesday? Oh, it's time for me to switch parties again.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, I forgot.
Who's left? Who have I not
Which one
signed
is
up
left?
with yet? Oh, we can't do the Libertarians. RFK's got that on lockdown.
I don't think he does. I think he's going to go truly independent as well, but we'll see.
Is he? Yeah.
That's coming out on Monday. They want good policies over partisan politics. We need to break the grip of the duopoly and give power to the people. So he's running as an independent. Let's take a look at the video that he put out in conjunction with that tweet.
Is process. We need you to be part and parcel of wrestling with this corporate duopoly, this two-party system that impedes, it gets in the way of the unleashing of the kind of policies of abolishing poverty and homelessness, of dealing with working wages, cutting back on militarism, and most importantly, trying to ensure that the best of who we are as a people can be more manifest, can be more concrete, because the crisis is real and these catastrophes are bombarding us. Please, come join us.
All right. Your donations are in good hands with the Cornel West campaign, who's now on their third ballot line in 4 months. Yeah, write them a check for $100. I'm sure they'll manage that really, really well. Yeah, really well. Between Cornel West and Peter Dow. Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. So it was a mystery. What the hell happened?
It's like fantasy football for politics, this team.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Jill Stein put out yesterday, as this announcement broke, breaking: Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka wish Dr. West well, affirm support for a strong Green campaign. Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka, previously advisors to the West campaign, today wished Cornel West well in his upcoming independent presidential campaign in the following joint statement. As colleagues who helped persuade Dr. West to pursue the Green nomination, we appreciate the good faith effort he has made over the past 4 months. Running solo, however, may better suit his long-standing role as a fiercely independent voice of moral authority. While we share Dr. West's formidable commitment to peace and justice, we are respectfully parting ways at this juncture, as we are committed to building an independent, people-powered party as an indispensable vehicle for challenging empire and oligarchy for the long haul. In light of Dr. West's decision to run independently, we are in discussion with several former candidates about potentially entering the race to carry the Green Party's anti-war, pro-worker, climate emergency agenda into this critical election. Well, if you thought the election was so fucking critical, you'd have figured out a way to make this work, because whatever fucking loser you recruit to head your ticket is not going to get a fraction of the support that he would have.
Listen, Keaton, once again, you're missing the opening. We should run.
Yeah, we should run for the Greens. That would be actually interesting. Should we do it?
I think we should. One of us, between the two of us and the fucking meatballs they have, one of us will win.
Yeah, maybe.
If we put our heads together at 9, we could take over the Greens by 5.
Let us know in the chat, should we do it? With the Democratic Party now leading the charge for war and censorship, betraying workers on the rail strike and dropping the $15 minimum wage, outdoing Trump in new fossil fuel projects on public lands, and voluntarily resuming crushing student debt payments when people are barely scraping by paycheck to paycheck. For all these reasons and more, we need an independent, corporate-free People's Party more than ever, okay? In deciding to run as an independent, the West campaign leaves behind the ballot lines they would have had access to, as well as the guidance of experienced ballot access staff and Green volunteers familiar with the process in most of the 50 states. We expect this will be a formidable obstacle in the coming months. Though Dr. West won't be running with our team, he is offering an inspired, courageous example to voters and candidates alike. We believe he is making an immeasurable contribution to the 2024 election, and for that we are deeply grateful. Given our similar visions and agendas, we will continue to look for synergy on the road ahead. Okay, so this statement was about as confused as Jill Stein's interview on Sabby Sabs last night, and that's not a criticism of Sabby. I thought Sabby did actually a very good job at trying to get some information out of her. But this is very muddled. This is very confused. One paragraph leads you to believe that maybe Cornel wasn't as committed to their platform of anti-war, anti-censorship values, wasn't as militantly anti-Biden as they wanted to be. But then in that third paragraph down, she outlines that in deciding to run as an independent, he's going to have a hard time. He's not going to have the ballot access that he would have on day one going in with us, which suggests to me that she regrets that he's parting ways with them. So it's very, very confusing. I think there's a
it's very political. She doesn't want to burn bridges with West. She didn't want to go scorched earth on him. At the same time, they apparently felt like they needed to say he made a mistake doing this, which tells you this was not a mutually agreed upon decision. It didn't come from their side. There were probably, at least Stein, from what we know of the Greens, there were a lot of people that weren't crazy about this 400-pound gorilla coming in to take over the party. But, I mean, it looks like Stein thought it was a good idea because she wants the Green Party to get over 5%, right? And it looks like, willing to prioritize that. So it seems like they couldn't resist making the argument public of what they must have basically said to him about going independent, while at the same time they didn't want to be like, fuck Cornel West. Like that's basically the upshot of the press release, and promote the Green Party at the same time. We need this party more than ever, and good luck to West, and this was probably a bad idea, and peace.
Yeah. Either way, just a really catastrophic and embarrassing error. I would say, from reading this statement and from listening to her interview on Sabby's show last night, that, we can litigate whose fault this was. At the end of the day, it's the same pathology that has corrupted Code Pink, which is just an inability to get your shit together when it matters and to execute. You have to execute in big moments like this.
Is this an example of that, though? Because
of course it is.
How much of this came from their side? Look, the Greens, that's a whole other thing. But how much of this came from their side? Because if you look at what she said, we talked about this. I mean, it seems more like Cornel started to do the math and said, shit, do I want to be this Ralph Nader figure in the corporate media and among the libs for the rest of my life? Well, it would be too embarrassing to just drop out. So, hey, let me go a path where I'm not going to have any real ballot access, and there's no way they can blame me if Biden loses.
Well, there's no way that Jill Stein would ever know that for sure, because if that's what's motivating Cornel, and I agree with you that that is what's motivating Cornel, he would never say that to anybody. He would take that to the grave. That's the whole point of dropping out off of the Green ticket and running independent, right? Because, look, if he just quits altogether, then he's going to come off as weak and never for real, and that's very damaging to his reputation. At the same time, I don't think he wanted to be there in a situation where he knew he would cost Biden the 2024 campaign. And I said when RFK declared independent, I said this in our video that we put out that night. I said between RFK and Cornel taking votes from Biden, it is almost impossible at this point for Joe Biden to win, because he's going to be just bleeding too much support. If RFK's polling between 10 and 20%, and half of that's coming from Biden, and then you have Cornel polling between 5 and 10% taking votes from Biden, well, there's just not the math there for Joe Biden, which means Cornel's presence on every state ballot line that the Greens have it on means a pretty much certain defeat for Joe Biden. And I think that's the moment when shit got really real for Cornel West. Right? Before then, it was like, yeah, there's a chance I'll blow it for Biden. I guess I'll have to take that chance. Now, with RFK entering as an independent, Cornel would almost certainly cost Biden the race. And I don't think that he was up for that. And I suspect that is what motivated him. In terms of what Jill Stein is saying, both in that statement and on Sabby, yeah, she's not making it very clear. And I think the reason she's not making it very clear is probably because Cornel's not making it very clear. Look, if we look at the timeline here, he was recruited by Nick Brana to run as a People's Party candidate. He said, sure. My suspicion at the time, while I was grateful that he did it, I was thinking, he could have done this with the People's Party because he knew that they weren't going to get ballot access many places and he wouldn't pose that big a threat in November. So it's a way to sort of run a campaign and get his message out. And do whatever movement building he thinks he can do in service of his values, which I pretty much share, almost to a T, I would think. But he could do that without actually threatening Biden in 2024. Then he had these real radicals grab his ear. He had Sharma, he had Chris Hedges, he had Jill Stein over at the Green say, hey, Cornel, if you're interested in running, it would be awesome if you ran with us because we actually have the infrastructure. We can actually get you on ballots. At which point he says, well, okay, I guess so, right? But what if I can't really say no because then I'm exposing myself as unserious about actually running. So he did it. And then when RFK entered, he's like, oh, no, okay, now I'm going to actually cost Biden the race. Now I'm actually going to destroy my reputation in elite circles in academia. I'm going to really, for real, burn all these bridges with corporate media figures who, like Anderson Cooper, who, I moved to tears in the wake of the George Floyd protests, who like me, who admire me. Now I'm really just going to burn every bridge that I've built throughout my life. I have to get out of this. And that's what I think, because I'm sorry, this decision, look, the bottom line, you could talk about the platform, you can talk about the movement that he's trying to build. The bottom line is this decision makes him less competitive in November. There is no question about that. And I know some people are saying it's easier to get on ballots as independents than it is in Green. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. In California alone, you need over 200,000 signatures for ballot access. And 200,000 really means 300,000, because anyone who's gathered signatures before knows that a lot of them get invalidated. People have old driver's licenses, or there's an error or this or that, right?
Well, especially with the Democratic Party working overtime to challenge every fucking signature.
Of course. So you're talking about the report I saw.
They send their legal teams
850,000.
out there
Yes,
and challenge everything that you try to file.
Of course. 850,000 is the number I saw as technically the number. Which means really, if you really want to be safe about it, you need like 1.2, 1.3 million. How the fuck are you going to do that? It's October, by the way. It's not April, right? You have 7, 8, 9 months, right, to do this. The deadlines are, between June and September generally for these different states. It depends. You need a ground game in all of these different states. You need people to pound the pavement and gather the signatures. There's no electronic shortcut to gathering signatures. You need an operation. That costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to build that out. How are you going to do that as an independent? So don't gaslight us into saying that, no, actually, this makes him more competitive in November. That's absolute bullshit. Here's Ryan Grimm. Don't believe me. Cornel West, after leaving the People's Party, is now leaving the Greens, pledging to run as an independent. Probably good news for Democrats, as he's unlikely to be on the ballot in some states. Here's the New York Times. The decision is likely to be a welcome one for Democrats, who in the past fought to keep Green Party candidates off state ballots. The Democratic Party is facing the prospect of a 2024 election in which multiple high-profile third-party candidates are on the ballot and are likelier to sway voters away from Biden than from a Republican challenger. Although Mr. West remains a candidate, he will now have to navigate the complex and time-consuming project of qualifying for the ballot in individual states without the support of the Green Party, who already had ballot access on, nobody seems clear on the fucking number. Some people say 18, some people say 20, some people say 40. Let's say 18. He's starting 18 states in the hole, and now he gets to pick and choose which states he pursues ballot access in. And here's my prediction. He will not pursue ballot access in swing states. He will only pursue ballot access in safe blue or safe red states, so that he is not in a position to actually affect the overall outcome in November of next year. That's my prediction. Sorry, I just wanted to get those two exhibits in.
No. I think the timeline of his process that you laid out, I think that's dead on. And it explains his behavior throughout this process. It explains all of these sudden shifts in strategies. It explains in the first place why he even wanted to get in bed with the People's Party. I think you're absolutely right, because he figured, okay, well, they don't really have any ballot access, so it'll just be a gesture, right? I'll be on the ballot in a couple of states. They'll probably be deep blue states. It's fine. It's not gonna affect the election. And then, he had people like Hedges got his ear, and he probably kind of got pushed into it. It probably started to take on a momentum that he hadn't really thought about the implications of. I think he liked making the rounds and talking about, jazz and how it relates to politics and having a platform and all that. Once shit got real with RFK, and I'm sure he had already been starting to think about the implications of following this course, then he changed gears again. I think you're exactly right. My initial reaction when he first started playing these games, if you remember, I got very angry. And, then I backed down on it because, hey, man, maybe I'm wrong. This is what gets me angry about this. A lot of people are very upset about the way that the Bernie Sanders campaign in the end took advantage of their time, of their money, of their efforts. We don't need somebody else to take advantage of people's desire to create meaningful political change. Now, I'm not saying he's doing it to sell books like somebody that we know. I'm not saying his intentions are mercenary. I'm not saying that. I think he, genuinely wants to have a platform without actually threatening Joe Biden or being the cause of a Trump presidency. So in the end, it's not that his motives are self-interested in that sense, but at the same time, Cornel, he has to appreciate, Dr. West has to appreciate, you're fucking with people. You're fucking with them, man. You got a lot of people who got really hurt by that fucking Sanders campaign, man. You can't fuck around with people like this. Like,
exactly.
you want a platform, man, go out there. You're a respected public figure, a beloved figure by almost everybody in the whole spectrum of what could loosely be defined as the left. You always have a platform, man. You're fucking Cornel West. You always have you don't need to play these games, man. You could have gone out there and talked about your opinions about politics and, go start a fucking Substack, man. People will read your shit. You're Cornel West, right? You don't need to do this, because when you do this, you're asking people to put their time and their money into something that you're not serious about. If you were serious about it, you wouldn't have done it this way.
Of course. What were the last few months for? What did he do then with the Green Party? He took 4 months off of the game clock for nothing. Now he's back at square one. So all these people who got
because
invested
he doesn't want to get momentum. He's trying to play it both ways. Like, he wants to have a platform, but he doesn't actually want to have a meaningful vote count at the end of the day. He's trying to fulfill both those objectives. Pay attention to me, but not too much.
I agree. I just do not buy it from people who are somehow trying to say that he's better off as an independent.
Ridiculous. That's
just ridiculous. It's absurd. Yeah. It's fucking absurd. And now look, you want to say that the Green Party is a dysfunctional organization and that they are too dogmatic in certain views. Courtney, a friend of the show, posted on her Facebook that somebody was chirping about how he's transphobic at the Green Party. Like I said, I don't know enough to corroborate that, but I'm sure there are people at the Green Party.
This person was claiming that he did, and I don't think this is the reason either. Although what she's claiming may be true, that they had just reached out to him to change his messaging on queer issues, because I guess he has said that trans athletes should, according to them, I've never heard him say this, but they're saying that he's saying that trans athletes should have their own category, and they're calling that separate but equal and so on. I mean, that sounds like what I've heard of the Green Party. I mean, I get the impression the Green Party and the DSA people, that's basically the same people. It's the don't clap people.
Right, the don't clap people. Right, exactly. So if you want to say that, look, this organization is just not an organization to build a movement with because they're too dogmatic and joyless and too strict in their insistence that, you subscribe to every single idea of theirs, or else you are this, otherized person who they'll never partner with. So if you want to say Cornel's better off building whatever movement he's trying to build on terms outside of the Green parties, okay, that's valid. That's valid. But at that point, he's a movement leader. He's not a candidate for fucking president. That's the difference that everybody has to keep track of here. He wants to build a movement. He wants to start like Nina Turner, just, form some knockoff Democrat version of worker strike back. All right. If he wants to go do something like that and make it more radical than, to be aligned with the Democrats, fine. Look, Cornel can do whatever he wants. That's all well and good. But don't disguise what you're doing as a presidential campaign if you're not serious about running a strategic presidential campaign. Right. Because in doing that, yes, you're asking for investments from people who don't have investments to make. I'm going to skip the line here because this is a good super chat from Everton Wright Jr. Thank you for the donation. Very relevant to what we're talking about right now. He told Bernie, meaning Cornel, told Bernie he missed his moment to turn around and do the same thing, meaning he said Bernie missed his moment in 2016. Mm-hmm. He should have run independent, because don't forget, Cornel supported Jill Stein that year. It's evil to run a campaign raising money from people who don't have it. It's evil. We need to stop acting like it's nothing. Exactly. If you're not serious about threatening the political candidates on the ballot next year. We're talking about a very narrow context here, folks. We're not talking about building a movement. That's why I don't want to hear about the platform. Okay, the platform's better as an independent on the Greens. Great. The bottom line is you're running in a competition here, and you just set yourself back 50 yards, okay? That's what you did here by doing this. And
by design. By design.
And by design. So all of this discussion is happening in the context of a presidential campaign. There is a contest. There is a mathematical contest where people who get the most votes wins. And you were in a position with the Greens, whether you like everything the Greens are about or not, and I understand if you don't think that the Greens are, the organization you want to build out a movement with, that's your choice to make. But there's no question that the Greens were best positioned to give you maximum impact on Election Day. And this is a fucking presidential campaign where that is the goal.
Yeah.
And you are sabotaging yourself in that contest by making a move like this. And given the timing of RFK entering the race, which would basically render Joe Biden's reelection campaign DOA if Cornel were on the ballot as well, I think he did this to make himself less competitive on purpose.
Yeah, he's playing this game where he puts his foot on the gas and then on the brake, and then on the gas and then on the brake. He wants just enough visibility to push his ideas, and not enough to affect the outcome of the election. Not enough for anyone to be able to claim that he cost Joe Biden the election should he lose.
Exactly.
Final point, unless you have more to add. Listen, people have been burned hard. The kind of people who would volunteer and donate, you just lost all those people. You just lost them. So I don't know who you think's going to care at this point about your campaign. Your campaign's done. There's a certain number of hardcore, dedicated, post-duopoly leftists like us who would have given you 100% support, and but most of us have been burned very hard by the two Sanders campaigns, and we don't give our time or money easily. You just lost all those people. So I don't know who you think you got left. Nobody's even going to care to talk to you about your fucking campaign. I mean, some people will, but I mean, my interest now in talking to Cornel about this has dropped to about zero. Like, I don't even give a shit. Like, when he first announced we really wanted to have him on, now I'm like, what would I talk to him about other than what we just said, which I don't think he'll take too kindly to.
No, exactly. He's going to be on Sabby's show tomorrow, I think, so I'd be very interested to hear his side of what happened with the Greens. I just have two more quick points to make. One of them...
I mean, you could skip that interview. I'm going to tell you right now. It's going to be John Coltrane, FDR, Frederick Douglass.
Right.
And I'm running for president. There you go.
Well,
I just did the interview for
I
him.
would like to hear his explanation for what happened here, his side of what happened, because we heard Jill's, right? And so I will definitely be listening for that. Two more points I wanted to make here. One of them JR raised here, so I'll bring this up. They left when Dow joined. Dow served his purpose. There's been some speculation about, is this the Peter Dow effect? That's all speculation. I can't know at this point.
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't really know or to what extent he was involved in that. What I will say, though, is that Peter Dow, and I said this on CJ's show yesterday because I jumped on their afternoon stream. You talk about a guy who everything he touches turns to shit.
Turns to shit.
Every single thing, whether it's the John Kerry campaign, the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Bernie Sanders campaign, the Marianne Williamson campaign, now the Cornel West campaign.
Do not let this man babysit your kids.
No, exactly. Certainly does not speak well of this guy, that you bring him in and a couple weeks later this happens. Don't forget, Peter Dow tweeted out, we have an ironclad commitment to be on the ballot in November. Well, unless you got a trick up your sleeve, which I don't think you have because your track record is one of constant and repeated failure, then you're not going to be on the ballot. I would put the over-under. Craig Pasta-Jardula put the over-under at 32.5. I want to call him up because whatever Super Bowl bets he's making, I'm going to take the opposite because I think that's way too high. I'll put the over-under for Cornel West's ballot access 4.5. 4.5 states.
That he'll be on any ballots?
The over-under means, the over-under in sports betting. Put the over-under at 4.5, meaning you bet, is he going to get ballot access on 5 or more?
Well,
or
yeah, but
fewer?
I'm saying the subject is whether he's going to get ballot access.
How many states will he be on?
How many states?
Yeah, I put it 4.5. I really do. At this point, who's to say he's not just going to quit altogether? I mean, come on, that's the trajectory he's on right now, if we're being fucking serious. How are these people going to go and pound the pavement to get him on the ballot? It takes thousands of signatures
that's
per
what I'm
state.
saying. Who's going to do? Who's going to do that?
Who are your volunteers at this point? Now that you've switched ballot lines twice in 5 months, who's going to go out there and say, "Yeah, my volunteer hours and my donations are in good hands"? With Cornel West, who's changed his mind now twice in 4 months, and fucking Peter Dow, career loser, interloping, ashtray-faced motherfucker Peter Dow, who's never won anything in his life. Yeah, we're going to trust him. We're going to trust him with our investment of time and resources. Absurd.
Well, that's it. I mean, this is a sad reality of life. And this doesn't just apply to presidential campaigns. This is true in life in general. Never ignore the red flags, man. They're never an accident. They always mean something, and they will almost always compound over time. You will almost always find that first red flag told you everything you needed to know.
Right. Indeed. And last point, because I know some people in the chat are saying we're overreaching, we're over speculating, we're making too much of this, we're being divisive. Look, we have the receipts to prove. I mean, certainly I do. I was as excited as anybody in this space for Cornel's run. So I was on board. Okay, so I was not setting him up for failure. I desperately wanted this to be successful. And it does not give me any pleasure to say that it's a failure at this point and that it's over at this point. But it is. I cannot come on here and lie to you and tell you that there's reason to go invest time and resources in the Cornel West campaign. Do I hope they know something we don't? Do I hope they prove me totally wrong? Do I hope I'm eating shit by this time next year and he's polling at 15%? Sure, I hope so. But, I can hope for a lot of things between now and then that I'm not going to get. And I'd be lying if I told you to expect it. So what do you want me to do?
Well, look, as soon as he started pulling this shit, if you remember, I said I think there's going to be a 10% chance he's going to be on the ballot in November. And this was at the moment everyone was very excited. And even I, man, I wanted to be fair, so I climbed down off that. I was like, hey, I tried to get excited about it, but I'm fucking, I've been around the block, man. Like, as soon as I started seeing some of the signs, I was like, yeah, this motherfucker's not going to do it. I wanted to be wrong. And anything that he did, some of the interviews he did were encouraging. What was the one he did where he kind of redeemed himself?
That was the Meet the Press.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to get excited because, look, and this will probably put a button on this, unless my esteemed colleague is going to reinforce the impression of our viewer's roommate of this being the Angry Man Show. Now I lost my train of thought. What was it? Oh, right. Okay. It is very, very, sad and disconcerting, I think, for a lot of us who were involved in the Sanders campaign in 2016 and 2020. Yeah, I think as much as we've been burned, we wanted a campaign. Of course we did. Of course we wanted to get behind somebody that we could feel good about and believe in and have some kind of a mission, because in the end, this is going to turn into a year of critiquing the major party candidates, expressing basic disdain for the people who are theoretically running as independents, mostly, and, doing media analysis of people who are in the tank for one of these fucking losers. And yeah, is that the way we would have wanted to spend our first campaign season on YouTube? This is the first campaign season that we've only been on YouTube like less than 2 years.
Yeah, about a year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be like the first campaign we're covering. And it's going to be, a dark journey through the savage heart of America, to borrow a phrase from Dr. Thompson. We're going to go out to the primary states. We're going to cover it. It's going to be funny. It's going to be absurd. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of great footage and a lot of interesting angles on where the country's at right now. And that's interesting. I'm excited to do it. But would I rather have been on a mission to change the system in a direct way with a candidate? Sure, of course I would. I mean, that doesn't mean there aren't causes and things that we can support. Obviously, you have a lot going on in labor right now. But yeah, man, I mean, it's going to be a campaign season we're going to be covering without a candidate. And it's a little depressing.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo all that. The only thing I would add to that is that we didn't just want a candidate to want a candidate. It's I think that this year. No, I know that's not what you meant. I just want to add that the reason we really wanted a candidate this year is because we feel like the establishment is especially vulnerable this year. Because if it's Biden versus Trump, that creates a historic opportunity for a third party candidate, and we'd love to have one that we could full-throatedly support. And we don't have that.
Which Kennedy might be able to do that in terms of what we care about strategically. But I don't think either one of us can get behind Kennedy in the way I think we both felt we could with Cornel.
No, I mean, if you're praising the IDF as valiant, heroic, defenders
like
of freedom,
we're never going to be able to get around that to be like, yeah, did you see what RFK said today? Like, that's just not going to happen. I mean, our coverage of RFK is going to be very clinical.
It's going to be horse race.
It's going to be horse race
to the extent that he can sow chaos within the system.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $10. Yasmin is correct. Americans need education from MSM propaganda. UAW President Shawn Fain could have used the spotlight of a real strike highlighting and educating the public on the struggle of labor. Yeah, thank you for the donation. And I just want to emphasize, because this is another thing, we don't have time because the show's already running a little long because we have 2 more segments, so won't get into this thoroughly. But I do think that the stand-up strike, for all my criticisms of it, is better than no strike at all. There's been some confusion from some people saying I'm trying to tear down the strike. No, it's better they're doing this than nothing. I just think they could have gotten a better deal quicker had they gone all out from day one, and I stand by that. Everton Wright, thanks for the $5. You guys, Kit, RBN, and anyone else you know need to form a media organization with Shama and Workers Strike Back and really start something real. The left is dead. Yeah, well, I mean, Shama's got her channel up and running now, and look, I mean, I've thought from time to time about trying to do some kind of big network kind of thing. It's interesting. I wouldn't really know where to start. We're going to need some.
I was looking at that. Remember when we first started, we were looking at that because I have that other channel. We were looking at how you make a network.
Right.
Yeah, like it can be done, but if you're doing it with outside people, I'm not sure how that would work.
It would have to be its own website. It's have to be its own construct, complete with video content, audio podcast, written stuff. It would just have to be basically a big sort of like online magazine type space, which we might be able to do. There's hoops to jump through. There's technical barriers to overcome, which I'm sure we can do that. So it is something that we've thought about from time to time for sure. Kelly Messiah, thanks for the $5. Libs are only against wars Republicans start. Yeah, exactly. Hence the genius of the Obama rebranding of neoconservatism. Absolutely. Yes, very good point. Leprechaun Alley, thanks for the $19.99. MTG supports the Single Amendment Act in Congress for her own ends, true, but knows that the anti-fascists support this too. They have their own strategy that they're drumming up supports for. It would be worth jumping on. Well, yeah, the thing that's really important to keep in mind, when Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets out something complimentary of your movement, the most significant part of that is not that Marjorie Taylor Greene gave you a compliment. The most significant part of that is that her followers, hundreds of thousands, maybe even over 1 million, I don't even know how many followers she has, but she's a nationally recognized figure. Her followers take a look at Code Pink, many of them for the first time in their fucking lives.
Right.
So how do you not take that win? How do you not retweet that? How do you not amplify that? If you're really serious about building, then yeah, okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene's a self-serving politician who has her own reasons for doing what she did. Okay, fine. You want to be cynical about that? Fine. But don't be cynical about her supporters, right? You have to be open-minded about ordinary people because it's going to take a lot of ordinary people to implement the kind of changes that you need to implement. And so it's just completely self-defeating to do what they did, which is a fucking pattern.
Politics, whether you're talking about inside or outside politics, it's always the art of persuasion.
Right.
Hey, if you can find this common point of agreement, there's your opening. If you disagree with these people on other things, now you're in dialogue with them. Now you're having a conversation with them. And you know what? In the end, most people have a hard time really hating somebody who's treating them respectfully and nicely.
Right.
You really want them to listen? Be like, hey, we're having a potluck. Why don't you come and we'll have a conversation? And, don't call them Nazis when you don't agree with them on every point.
Exactly. Catskill Fever, Rumble Rant. Okay, now I feel bad. It's all right. No, don't worry. You did not offend me. Don't worry. For $50, you can trash my fashion sense all you want.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. So no worries at all. And we it's all in good fun over here. Trimble Von House, thanks for the Rumble Rant. He'll have the cowbell left, maybe. Yeah, cowbells.
Nah, those people are going to be all in for whoever MSNBC tells them to be.
Yeah, no, they're still mad at him, even though he's doing this. Yeah, they just want him to disappear entirely. Gulmaro Ochoa Montoro, I like that name. AOC drives a Tesla. That should let you know she's a douche. I didn't know she drove a Tesla. I didn't know she drove.
Yes, this was actually, she got a little shit about this week, and she came up with some bullshit, very very much like the Pierre press conference. We had it and we couldn't get rid of it, and we're looking for another car, and we got stuck with the lease or something. And like that was like a year ago, and she still has the car.
Oh wow, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool
Jane,
blue.
you
Shirt
ignorant
looks
slut.
Cool blue. Shirt looks good on Keaton. Thank you.
I agree. I
like
think these are good colors for him.
I dig it.
He's an autumn.
I'm an autumn. That's right. Lloyd Blackwell, thanks for the $2. I'm so gonna share the MTG Code Pink clip. Well, thank you. Yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna hear some criticism for that, but it's all right. We'll deal with it. But thank you, Lloyd.
Yeah,
Appreciate
whatever.
It.
So at least we're not talking about MMT today.
Exactly. Yeah. Zach Boyles.
It's like going after Zeno at a Scientology convention.
You're right. I think you lose credibility with these early morning streams. It's suspicious. Maybe you're on Moscow time, or worse, you're day trading. Well, you can't day trade now. Because it's open. You'd be missing out on the action. But thank you, Zach. All right. Wow. Lots of super chats this morning. Thank you guys very much. Russell, as a libertarian-ish listener, I agree with your view on MMT. Oh, speak of the devil.
Speak of the devil.
Thanks to you both for being an intellectually honest voice. It's so desperately needed. Thank you. Appreciate that.
We may be mostly wrong, but we're entirely honest.
Mostly wrong, but yeah, that's a good slogan for our show. Mostly wrong, entirely honest. Keaton visiting New Mexico. Welcome back, Russ. Peter Dow advice. Let's start a band. Yeah. This shirt does. Yeah, it's New Mexico. It's Utah. It's Southwest. It's a Southwest palette.
I got in honor of my access to clothes.
Right.
I've got my Cthulhu shirt on. Not really, man, because when you're deciding what to pack, like, okay, so what's the bare minimum I could pack where I'm not going to have to do laundry every 2 days?
Right.
I came up with 4 sets of clothes for a month. So I've been wearing the same 4 sets of clothes for a month.
Yeah, so now you got that expanded wardrobe back at the home base.
Back.
Pete Sweet, thanks for the $2. Wes, great gobbledygoo, what are you up to? Yeah, indeed. Christian Fortin, thanks for the $10. Where does Chris Hedges fit in that story? He brought West to the Greens and is a staunch defender of Palestinians. What the fuck doubt? Yeah, that's what people have been asking. Where is Chris Hedges in all this? Because he was very vocal at the beginning, getting him involved
and then
in
he
the
disappeared.
And all of a sudden, nothing to say about anything. He's just gone completely silent on this, which is very, very strange. I will admit that.
It is strange.
All right, will you have Dr. Shiva on your show? Everyone needs to hear him. No, I will not have Dr. Shiva on the show. That guy. Let me tell you that guy.
Who is this guy?
What a nasty prick. I mean, an unbelievably hostile fucking prick this guy is. He tags like Greenwald and Jimmy Dore and all these podcasters who wouldn't have him on his show. He's running for president somehow. Is he the guy who wasn't born here who's running for president anyway because he claims there's some theory where he will be allowed to serve? A total fucking lunatic. He tweets at all these podcasters calling them fucking pussies for not having him on and cowards. Then he goes on Misty Winston's show, our friend Misty. She has a radio show. He goes on her show. He starts cursing out all these other people for not giving him the microphone. Just unbelievably hostile and pugnacious and uncooperative. Not only does that fucking prick do that, he takes video from the stream because they're a radio show, but it's on a Zoom call. He broadcasts the Zoom screen to his own social media feed and then starts monologuing during their ad breaks, which is what they use to pay for the show. So you pirate their show while you're doing it, and then you talk through their ad breaks, directing people to your feed and not theirs. So, no, that guy's a fucking asshole. I'm not interested. I know some people have been asking me about that, and I haven't said anything because I don't want to be divisive, but for $5, I owe you my honest opinion, and my honest opinion is that he's a hostile prick, and I'm not having him on. So there you go. Thank you for the donation. I apologize if you're disappointed. I apologize if that answer disappointed you, but that is my honest response, and that's what you pay us for. So, yeah, no. That was just completely nasty. I mean, he was horrible to Misty on that interview. Horrible. The most fucking uncooperative, just vulgar, just nasty, just mean, angry, nasty prick who upset that people aren't platforming him? They're not platforming him because he's a nasty prick who's uninteresting. That's why they're not platforming him, right? He wants platforms, you got to be cool and you got to be interesting. All right, so there you go. Whew, got that off my chest today. These decisions...
The Angry Men Show.
Yeah, so stop asking about Shiva. I'm not having him on. No way. These decisions by Cornel West seem like they are by a person who is serious. If not, why should anyone vote for Cornel West? No, of course not.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what we're saying, Cool Blue. That's what we're saying. All right. Anthony, thanks for the $2. Even if Cornell got 5%, no 28 funding for a third party. Well, that's the thing. Now that you're independent, it's like, what party are you trying to get ballot access for? What's the long-term plan here? There is no long-term plan here. So now the 5% doesn't even mean anything. Because why?
So now you just want to talk to podcasters.
Right. Now you just want to talk to podcasters. And maybe get 3% of the vote in Massachusetts where Biden's going to win anyway. I mean, that's what this campaign is at this point. It's not a serious challenge to any kind of power structure at this point. Cool Blue, Noam Chomsky, Ralph Nader, Cornel West, ex-heroes. Yep. Indeed, it's a shame. It's really a shame. Like, I really hate to say it because, as Russell was saying, look, you want to do your thing, you want to get your message out there, start an organization, start a Substack, do whatever you want, but don't disguise what you're doing as a serious campaign in a competition that you have no intention of winning or even seriously competing in. Because
if you could do that by yourself, like Marianne does, I mean, maybe.
Right, exactly, yeah.
You could just go on shows and go on Twitter every day and be like, hey, I'm running for president, not involve a lot of other people, then maybe, but doesn't seem like what you're aiming for.
Okay, so Tara is a patron. She's in the back here, and she asked on the private chat, why do you think Cornel West is such a vote getter? Ask people on the street who he is and get back to us. Well, polls show that he was more of a vote getter than Howie Hawkins, just because he has more name ID, right? And he does have...
Or Jill.
Credibility. Yeah, exactly. So, he's still a bigger name. I mean, is he a vote getter the way RFK is? No, because RFK is much more famous than him. But, compared to who the Greens usually fielded... Yeah. I mean, he was well positioned. He still is well positioned, according to recent polls, to crack 5%. He was polling at 5% in Iowa, right? I mean, so, that tells you Iowa, is a pretty conservative state nowadays. It's now mostly a red state. Like, that's not even going to be a contested swing state this cycle. It's going to go red. So if he's at 5% in a red state like Iowa, that tells you he does have some vote-getting potential. Of course, that poll is now moot, because he's not on the ballot in Iowa now, and he probably won't be on the ballot in Iowa now.
Yep.
Right? So it just renders all of that a complete fucking waste of time, which, yes, is a real shame. All right, folks, we got 2 more segments. We got some more Super Chats to get to in a little while here, but let's get on with the program. Bill Maher's show is back on the air, not his podcast, but Real Time with Bill Maher is back now that the writer's strike is over. And so here is a clip of Bill Maher on his first panel back with Sam Harris and Mary Catherine Ham, who is a editor at Town Hall and Hot Air. She's also a contributing writer at The Federalist and a CNN contributor as well. So she's right of center, but as we will demonstrate in a little while, not a hardcore Trumper by any means, but the question of Donald Trump's legal troubles came up, and so she mentioned the original sin of all of this was Russiagate. And the reason why you can't really build credibility around these attacks on Trump is because all of that goodwill was squandered with Russiagate. And of course, Bill Maher and Sam Harris, it's funny because these guys are such anti-wokesters, right? They're such critics of like postmodernism, right? They claim to have such a corner on reality, yet their take on Russiagate is as religious and as unreal as anything that you would hear from a religiously devout person or a lot of these wokesters, right? Like this is their wokeism right here, is Russiagate. And so here she is laying it out for them.
Well, that's what always strikes you when you deal with these people, because they're so virulent about Fox News viewers and yeah, man, I mean, that's a certain kind of right-wing person. There's no one in society more like those people than you people are.
Right. Functionally,
the rest of
exactly
us are
the same.
standing apart and watching both of you behave exactly in the same disgusting knee-jerk ways, right? You're both very prone to accept any propaganda that comes to you from your media sources. You're both very resistant, as you'll see in this segment, to any contradictory narrative that gets away from what your media has told you. It doesn't even charts, diagrams, pictures. It doesn't matter. You're just like these people that you claim to be so much smarter than.
Exactly. And I just want to mention before we start the roll the tape here, this video is from Twitter, courtesy of Turncoat Don, a great video editor on Twitter. So there were a couple of different sort of satirical flourishes that he puts in here throughout the video. That's not HBO, that's his touch. So go follow Turncoat Don on Twitter and on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel as well. Here we go.
The original sin from both media and the intelligence agencies and federal law enforcement is the Russiagate stuff. And the reason that so many in the party, and I'm here as the translator because I'm not one of them, but so many in the party accept so much of Donald Trump's behavior is because the Russia stuff was a lie.
No, it wasn't.
Well, it wasn't all a lie.
Yes, it's not all a lie. You guys have been are you going to do a Steele dossier on me?
No.
That
some of the Steele dossier was true. Okay.
So they can't even get their story straight on that. Sam Harris says that part was a lie. Oh, it wasn't all a lie. You mean the thing that started it all? Oh, yeah, that was a lie. And then Bill Maher, well, no.
Not all of it. Not all of it. It turns out he didn't only urinate. Most of it was beer, but there was a little trickle of urine that came out on the hookers. So, it wasn't a flood of urine, but it was a little urine.
It's so coincidental that you said the word urine, because I was just about to say, great new set design for the show. They made it look like, hey, let's make the background look like the crew just pissed all over the walls. Like, that's what it looks like. It's a piss yellow color palette that they have. It looks like, hey, why don't we have the audience come and just piss all over the set before we turn the cameras on? So there's a nice yellow glow behind all the speakers. That looks horrible. It's horrible.
I mean, Bill Maher, I mean, it's a funny thing because he does all this anti-woke shit, which, is certainly not going to make you popular with the liberal crowd. And then this stuff, he's completely blind to the idea that the received wisdom might be bullshit. This stuff, he just goes full shit lip, just typical shit lip.
Exactly. Like, you're right. Like, you stick your thumb in their eye on a lot of the identity politics stuff, but then the only people who this bullshit appeals to are those people who just pissed off with the identity politics stuff. So you talk about you just like cutting your audience off at both ends. All right, here we go.
We did Mueller report for 3 years.
Yes, and Mueller never said he was innocent.
And the whole time, I'm like, guys, I don't think he's a Russian plant. And everyone on CNN set is looking at me like I'm crazy. And at the end, we get to not much there, which
No,
was
there
the
was
case
quite a bit
throughout.
there.
There was a lot
There was
there.
a lot there.
Yeah.
There was collusion we never had before. It was unprecedented that a president would do that. He just did it in public because he's insane.
You do know
He did it in public because he's insane. The motherfucker is currently facing like 855 indictments. So you really think if he committed crimes so out in the open as you claim that this Russiagate was an example of, you don't think they'd have nailed him for any of that? Look at everything they're going after him for now. You don't think that he would be charged under some statute now if they had anything there? Like, this is not a guy who's gotten a pass from the legal system. This is the guy who's getting the book thrown at him from every angle right now. So how are you going to say, well, it's just that he's insane, so he committed these crimes so out in the open and he gets away with it because he's Donald Trump? The guy's got 5 court dates scheduled in the next 6 months. He was just in a civil court right now. What the fuck are you talking about? It's just delusional.
Not only that, I mean, and she brings it up with the Bidens, but it's not just that. I mean, you read Clinton Cash. It gets into how the Clintons, under Hillary's State Department, steered a uranium deal that sold a lot of our uranium stock to Russia. Was done under them. What if that were Donald Trump? I mean, they'd be all over it. So it's where they choose to focus. There was also, who was a Clinton loyalist? John Podesta. There was a whole investigation with him and his brother and their lobbying firm about being unregistered agents who did work for Russia and other foreign governments. And, if they wanted to frame it that way, if the media wanted to frame it that way, there's as much, if not more, evidence of collusion on the other side, as she points out, either in this or the other clip you were showing me. In the end, the Steele dossier was Russian disinformation.
Yes,
that was
Clinton
Russian
disinformation.
It was
using a Russian national.
Right? How is that not collusion? Right? Isn't that collusion? That is more. There's more evidence that the Clinton campaign colluded with Russians than there is that Donald Trump did. So why aren't you up in arms about it? Why is your head exploding about this?
Of course.
No, I think one of the advantages
of being insane.
And most of it,
who can clap? How brain dead is your audience that they can applaud? Oh, he just did it out in the open because he's insane. I mean, just pathetic.
But, this was always David Frum's line. Everything he's doing is in plain view, and it's not illegal. He's just violating.
David Frum, great source of information. David Frum, architect of the most blatant Iraq War lies that were ever told. Oh, if you read David Frum, he's the source of information on this. You should really go.
In every political norm we have.
Except there are things there were.
Back up.
Line. Everything he's doing is in plain view, and it's not illegal. He's just violating every political norm we have.
Okay, well, if it's not illegal and he's just violating every political norm we have, then that is for the voters to rectify if they choose to do so. Like that is not an argument for an intrusion into the political process by the legal system. He just said, well, if he's doing it out in the open and it's not illegal, right, it just violates every norm in the book.
Okay, so cut this out later if it's stepping on the segment. But just to be clear on what I'm talking about here, because this is a good example of, hey, man, if you wanted to weaponize the Justice Department and the media in the same way with the Clintons, you could very easily do that. This is the New York Times. This is hardly a anti-lib publication. It is the
this was the famous article that was circulating at the time.
Yeah, this is the house paper of the shit libs. As the Russians gradually assumed control of Uranium One in 3 separate transactions from 2009 to 2013, Canadian records show a flow of cash made its way to the Clinton Foundation. Uranium One's chairman used his family foundation to make 4 donations totaling $2.35 million. Those contributions were not publicly disclosed by the Clintons, despite an agreement Mrs. Clinton had struck with the Obama White House to publicly identify all donors. Other people with ties to the company made donations as well. And shortly after the Russians announced their intention to acquire a majority stake in Uranium One, Mr. Clinton received $500,000 for a Moscow speech from a Russian investment bank with links to the Kremlin that was promoting Uranium One stock. So literally, when you say there's more evidence of collusion regarding Democrats than there is regarding Trump, that's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. That's not having an anti-democratic bias. That is demonstrably fucking true. So when the conservatives and conservative media talk about it being a witch hunt, I mean, they're not wrong. It doesn't mean Donald Trump, and in regards to Russiagate, I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about his various prosecutions going on with Donald Trump. I don't believe he's innocent of everything he's being accused of or being charged with. But what I think is incontrovertible is there's as much, if not more, evidence against prominent Democrats, including Joe Biden and his family, that is not being framed by the media as stuff that the American public should be ripping its hair out about. It's all narratives.
Right. Exactly.
There were things that were illegal, like using the FISA court to spy on American citizens in ways that they should not have done. That was legal, but that wasn't him.
That's right.
And the fact that the Hillary Clinton campaign was partially responsible for funding this dossier, which partially came from, wait for it, Russian disinformation.
Boom.
It was, and it started this cycle of media.
Turncoat Don should have animated something there. He should have given that a just a note for next time.
Jerk, and then we had 4 years of that.
It's not exactly everything they said it was, but it's not nothing.
The standard of evidence used for the Russia thing for 3-4 years versus the standard of evidence used now in media for Biden and Hunter Biden's shenanigans and fairly obvious influence peddling is worlds apart. Apart.
Exactly.
And I would just like, and voters deserve fairness in how these two people are treated. They do not get it, and they sometimes don't get it from law enforcement. And here's the problem. A bunch of people, including in the justice system, looked at Trump and said, he's going to bust all the norms. And you know what we need to do? Bust all the norms to stop him. And that is a very unhealthy.
Not all. Just the ones that are not important. Just the ones that are unimportant, that are subservient to the overall cause of getting rid of Trump, right? But that's a great point. I mean, that's the ultimate point. Now, as we have an impeachment inquiry being filed into Joe Biden, is okay. Now we have a situation where the standard of evidence is completely different, right. And so how you could still be arguing that the evidence that has been litigated over and over and over again throughout the Russiagate saga now for years and years. I mean, this is ridiculous now. This is going back 6 years now. How you can argue that meets a higher standard of evidence than the investigations into Joe Biden is just absurd. It's just absurd. And everything is in context. Politics is all about context. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it's such transparent state media, like the Ray Epps headlines that were all almost identical. Ray Epps found guilty, challenging right-wing conspiracy narrative. They all spun it that way. They all spun it exactly the same way, that this guy getting a slap on the wrist actually did not reinforce the theory that he was a Fed, but completely debunked it. Right? He's got to do a little community service. Well, now we can see they threw the book at him, right? Right. It is. It's state media, and that's how you can come out being, there's like Bill Maher. It wasn't everything they promised, but it wasn't nothing. Yes, it was. Right. Yes, it was fucking nothing. Yes, it literally was nothing. Literally was nothing. Unlike a lot of people that you support.
Exactly. All right, let's take some more super chats. We have one more segment on the day. Axel Strife, thanks for the $5. Do you think Chris Hedges feels the knife in his back, stuck his neck out just for West to undercut his goodwill? I have no clue. He has not said anything since that worker strike back event where he announced that he was in contact.
He's the one we
Cornel.
should get on. We should have him on to get the inside scoop.
Is he around? Is he okay? I would like a proof of life on Chris Hedges to see what he has to say about any of this. Because who the hell knows? It's very bizarre.
He better not turn up with the Ilhan Omar lobotomy grin.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Who the hell knows, folks? 186 over on Rumble, 684 over on YouTube. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, if you have not already. Please and thank you. And hit that follow button over on Rumble. Everton Wright Jr., thank you for the $5. Jill said she only suggested Doug, and West said no, he's too toxic. Jill said she only suggested Doug. Oh, you mean Dow? I think that's probably an autocorrect. And West said no, he's too toxic. Then 3 months later said bring him on around the same time line. Keaton just explained. I think, like I said, you look at the timing where Peter Dow comes onto the campaign, and then a few weeks later it all goes to hell. Yeah, I mean it's hard to completely disregard the possibility that there was some influence there, but ultimately, no. Ultimately, I think this was Cornel getting cold feet.
I agree, and to be fair, it's not like, wow, this is completely unlike the way he was running the campaign before he brought on Peter Dow.
Exactly, right. It's not like this was a sharp turn, right? Folks, we're at 12,998 YouTube subscribers. So if just 2 of you guys who are not subscribed now can hit that subscribe button, we can get to 13,000 by the end of the show here on YouTube. Thanks very much again. Half Dahlia, thanks for the €5. About Cornel West, maybe he thought the step back that he went by leaving the Green Party can be counterweighted by his name recognition and public profile. Can't. It can't, because you're at a stage in the game where you need infrastructure. You're at a stage in the game where you need infrastructure. If he wanted to run as an independent because he didn't like what the Greens were about enough to really commit to building out their organization, the time to decide that and stick to it would have been not even May or June. I mean, if you're talking about really building something from scratch, from zero, you'd have had to do that, February or March. This would have been a 2-year project. It's too late. It's October already. These signatures are due in July, August of next year. You think, well, that's plenty of time. It's plenty of time if you have an organization behind you. It's not plenty of time if you're starting with just a website, which is what he's starting with now.
He's purposefully putting the brakes on his campaign so he doesn't do too well. That's what he's doing. Yeah. He's making a show of running for president. He's not running for president.
Yep, I agree. Goody Weaver, thanks for the $5. Our only leverage was our ability to tank the Democrats, and West just screwed us out of that. Exactly. People are dying. This isn't a game. I am so angry. Don't blame you. Don't blame you. Thank you for the donation. Good point.
Imagine how angry people are going to be when he's telling you how you have to vote for the neoliberal disaster over the neo-fascist gangster.
All right. I mean, my guess is at this point, he'll stay off the ballot in swing states. So you can vote your conscience in Massachusetts, vote for the neoliberal disaster in New Hampshire, right? So if you live a few blocks north of your Massachusetts neighbor, you got to vote for the neoliberal disaster.
Somebody said in the comments, my chosen candidate, Dave Chappelle, is all in on Ukraine. I got to look into that. I may have to change my vote.
Yeah,
you may vote for Wayne Brady this time or something.
Yeah, exactly. Is it not possible to write in a candidate? Asked the Illustrative Carpet Company. On all ballots, i.e. Dave Chappelle. No one ever mentions that. I mean, you could do a write-in campaign, sure. But really, to do it seriously, you have to be on the ballot. So, yeah. And look, you want to talk about write-ins. Like, any talk about, well, what could the other plan be? What could we do now to get Cornel on the ballot? He just forfeited the best possible opportunity to get on as many ballots as possible. So at this point, if you're interested in strategizing with Cornel, you have to deliberately look past the fact that he intentionally took himself out of contention,
right?
Where he would have had it most. So at that point, I mean, like Everton said earlier, people don't have fucking time and money to waste on bullshit. If you're gonna do this, do it. If you're not gonna do it, start a fucking Substack or start a fucking nonprofit and
if you just want to talk about politics,
right?
You were doing that already, weren't you?
Exactly. Kuzetsky Bassane, thanks for the $4.99. Appreciate that very much. Cool Blue predicts Cornel drops out within 6 months by April.
I think there's a very good chance of that because nobody's going to volunteer to get him the signatures he needs to get on a ballot.
Yeah. I mean, it's heading in that direction. Paul Chu, thanks for the $5. To quote Johnny Rotten, ever get the feeling you've been cheated? Yep. Zach Boyles, James Roguski has a great YouTube-friendly WHO interview. All right, I'll check that out, Zach. Thank you. It must be YouTube-friendly if it's up there. Send us the link.
That must sound like a fucking mob wiretap. Yeah, so if you put the tomatoes in the bag and you leave them on the porch, then the thing doesn't get into the thing. You know what I'm saying?
Get into the thing. Yeah, you mix it the right way, and the things they stay separated. You know. Yeah, you can also always put them. You can put them back together when you're done at the end. You know.
Capiche?
Capiche? Exactly. All right, folks. We got a handful more super chats. We will get to those after this final segment of the day. Joe Biden is building a wall. Yes, you heard that correct. Joe Biden building a wall. The Biden administration says it is using executive power to allow border wall construction in Texas. The Biden administration announced they waived 26 federal laws in South Texas to allow border wall construction on Wednesday, marking the administration's first use of sweeping executive power to pave the way for building more border barriers. Waived 26 federal laws. That's important. A tactic used often during the Trump presidency. The Department of Homeland Security posted the announcement on the U.S. Federal Registry with few details outlining the construction in Starr County, Texas, which is part of a busy border patrol sector seeing high illegal entry. According to government data, about 245,000 illegal entries have been recorded in this region during the current fiscal year. There is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers and roads in the vicinity of the border of the United States in order to prevent unlawful entries into the United States in the project areas, Alejandro Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, stated in the notice. There is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers. The Clean Air Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, and Endangered Species Act were some of the federal laws waived by DHS to make way for construction that will use funds from a congressional appropriation in 2019 for border wall construction. The waivers avoid time-consuming reviews and lawsuits challenging violation of environmental laws. So a few of the laws that they waived were the Clean Air Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, Endangered Species Act. Later in the article, environmental advocates say structures will run through public lands, habitats of endangered plants and animal species like the ocelot, a wild spotted cat. A plan to build a wall through will bulldoze an impermeable barrier straight through the heart of that habitat. It will stop wildlife migrations dead in their tracks. It will destroy a huge amount of wildlife refuge land. And it's a horrific step backwards for the borderlands. Lycan Jordal, a Southwest conservation advocate for the Center of Biological Diversity, said on Wednesday afternoon. Yeah, there was a great film that came out a few years ago called The River and the Wall. One of the first episodes I ever did for this show back when we were just an audio podcast. I interviewed someone who was featured in that film. Makes a really interesting point about these border walls really disrupting ecosystems, especially in a desert environment, because you put a wall between a land animal and the Rio Grande, that animal is not going to be able to drink any water because you're in the middle of the desert. It's not like there's another body of water that they can go drink from. Like, that is an oasis of life in that area. And so you build a wall and you stop, an armadillo or whatever from getting to that water. That animal is going to die off, which is, of course, a negative in its own sense if you're an animal lover, as I am. But it also disrupts ecosystems. It is an environmental disruption that we don't think about. Knowing Biden, though, given how fucking stupid and brain fried he is, he'll probably put a staircase on the wall for the animals. And just say, this is only for animals to get to the river to drink. Imagine they build a wall and they build a staircase over it. That's something that his team would do.
Build a Rube Goldberg contraction.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's animals that are smart enough to figure out how to scale it.
Right.
Deserve to live.
Exactly. So here's the main thing here now. The DHS decision on Wednesday contrasts the Biden administration's posturing when a proclamation to end construction on January 20th, 2021, which was Inauguration Day for Joe Biden, stated building a massive wall that spans the entire southern border is not a serious policy solution. So Biden is maintaining that his hand is being forced here. And he had Karine Jean-Pierre go out and try and sell that to the press corps. Here she is fielding some questions about this.
border wall does not work. The president just told me that a border wall does not work. If that's the case, why does his own Department of Homeland Security Secretary say in a public notice, quote, there is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers?
Here's what I can say. I can speak to what the president was very clear in saying, and also what you all have been reporting about this construction. So the facts are this is not new. These funds were appropriated in fiscal year 2019 under Republican leadership, and DHS is required by law to use the funds for appropriated purpose. That's what we're seeing. This was announced back in June by the DHS. And so, look, we believe that there are better effective ways of moving forward to secure our border and security, our border security, and we have continuously asked for Congress to act, to provide our CBP, the law enforcement at the border, to give them the resources they need to do their jobs.
You have continually asked for Congress's support starting when? Starting when the Republicans took over Congress, so that you can blame them for not giving you the support that you need? Because don't forget, January 20th, 2021, when Biden took office, he did so with a majority in both chambers. And so what do you mean you've been asking for Congress to give you the resources that you need to do this the smart way? No, you haven't. Or at least not since the Republicans took over, apparently, because now you're complaining that you have no choice but to build this wall here. Well, let this go a little more.
And so we're going to continue to call on Congress. We believe, and the president has been very clear, even when you asked him, does a border wall work? He said no. And he's been very consistent about that. We believe that we need border technology that is modernized and land ports of of entry. And that's what we want to see. And that's what I can speak to. And this is something that we were required by law, and we are complying. This is an administration that does believe in the rule of law.
Okay.
Okay. I haven't.
They believe in
seen-
the rule of law, which is why they're waiving 26 environmental laws to do this.
Well, that's another great point. I haven't seen her at work in a while. Yeah, she's really grown into the job, because that was really a masterclass in word salad. While within that word salad, she managed to touch on these shit-lib talking points that will only make sense to the kind of people who still think Joe Biden is a good idea. Which, MSNBC people. We believe in the rule of law. That parliamentarian shit goes a long way with those people.
Right.
Right. So this whole lie, it's just a lie that their hands are tied. If your hands are tied, why are you waiving 26 federal laws to do it? Clearly applying those laws, you could gum it up, even if what you're saying is true, that this is your hands are tied by an act of Congress or some bill, which that's unclear. I don't think that's true or entirely true. Obviously, you could just stop it by throwing all these regulations at it, right? But you're not doing that. But I promise you talk to a lib, and they bought the whole parliamentarian thing. You ever tell a lib about the minimum wage? They will bring that up to you, because they got that so drilled into their head from their media.
Absolutely. Well, here's how you know that they're not being truthful about this. Because had they been even remotely honest about this, they wouldn't be getting pushback from fellow Democrats, especially not pushback from Beto O'Rourke, who challenged them on this. When even Beto is giving you a hard time, you know that you have a paper-thin argument here. 1, walls don't work. 2, President Biden promised he wouldn't build them. 3, now it's even harder for voters to distinguish between him and Trump on border and immigration. And 4, this is a wasted opportunity to use executive power to actually fix our asylum system instead of impotent political posturing. I want to go back to item number 3 there. Now it's even harder for voters to distinguish between him and Trump on border immigration. The reason it's hard for voters to distinguish between Biden and Trump on immigration is because there's not much difference between Biden and Trump on immigration. The only difference is Biden postures more humanely, so more immigrants come, and creates more chaos when he can't treat them as humanely as his rhetoric would suggest. That's really the only difference. The only difference in how we handle immigration is how we as a society choose to emotionally process how we deal with immigration.
Trump's policies were a continuation of Obama's,
right,
and Biden's policies are a continuation of Trump's.
Exactly.
There's not a lot of difference between the three.
Right. And when I say it's a matter of emotional processing, I mean, under Obama, we feel really terrible that we can't let all the immigrants in. Oh, isn't that a shame? Under Trump, it's, no, this is our country. We build a wall. We keep the ones out that we don't want coming in. We kick the ones out who are here and who shouldn't be here, right? Now, under Biden, it's back to, they sent Kamala Harris down to Guatemala. Do not come, please. We can't. It's all just how you choose to emotionally process the inescapable reality of neoliberalism, which is that it requires draconian border enforcement. It requires closed borders because these are the only checks on capitalism that we are willing to actually implement, right? You could tweak capitalism in a way that empowers ordinary people, or you can tweak it in a way that limits the population so that there's fewer resources to be spread amongst a larger group of people in an open borders situation. That's the problem. And of course, Democrats are no more willing to confront capitalism at the end of the day than their Republican counterparts. And so you're going to have basically more or less the same border policy because the math remains more or less the same. You have austerity, you have people competing for limited resources. The more people are here to compete for those limited resources, the lower the quality of life for the average person. That is an inescapable calculation absent broader reform. Once again, I am not advocating for closing the borders and, continuing to perpetrate this austerity politics. What I'm saying is when you have a political system as broken as ours and you cannot escape that ultimate reality of neoliberalism and austerity policy, at that point, immigration does become a huge problem. It's becoming a huge problem in blue cities and blue states now where everybody is forced in the Democratic Party to basically admit that they cannot, whether they want to or not, they cannot stray too far from Trump's policies here because they're unwilling to confront the underlying problems that undergird those policies and that ultimately, and here's the part no one wants to say out loud, that ultimately make those policies necessary. And I'm not saying they're necessary for good reason. Please don't confuse what I'm saying. They're necessary for bad reasons. But if you're not willing to challenge the reasoning behind these border policies, guess what? There ain't no way to change the border policies. That's just a fact.
Well, this is where I think the left really loses people and particularly loses labor and the working class. The left wants to pretend that having millions and millions of desperate immigrants coming into the country has no effect on industries, has no effect on wages, has no effect on job availability. And that's just not true. I mean, I was in an industry where uncontrolled immigrant labor destroyed the financial compensation in that industry. You talk to anyone in construction, it used to be like a really good job and that drove down wages a lot. So at that point, you have to ask yourself, why doesn't this problem get fixed? Well, it's not really in the interest of corporate power and the ownership class to fix this problem, is it? It puts downward pressure on wages. Now, you can say that without hating immigrants or thinking they're terrible for trying to come and make money for their family. You can hold these two ideas in your mind at the same time. Like, you don't have to be a virulent racist to acknowledge the reality of the downward pressure that kind of uncontrolled, unmanaged immigration has on the labor pool. And look at what we were saying just in terms of my experience coming back to the United States at the beginning of the show. Because the United States is run like the Hunger Games, when you don't even have the infrastructure set up to take care of the people who are already here. Of course, you bring in millions of desperate people. It just turns up the heat on the Hunger Games, which creates all of this backlash and resentment against immigrants, which, let me be clear, they do not in any way deserve. And anybody who's saying, well, you want to fix this, you should fix our foreign policy, you're 100% correct. But in the end, that doesn't really make a difference to the low-wage worker. And that low-wage worker is not necessarily white. If you look at who the sector in society is based on polling, I've shown this article before. It was a more general article about people's political attitudes. The group in America that is most antagonistic to illegal immigration are black men.
Right.
Well, that's not very surprising, is it? Because whose jobs are most threatened, right?
Right.
So, you know, they try to present this as a white supremacist issue, as a racial issue. It's an economic issue. And I think particularly as leftists, we should recognize that the same overlords that we're always willing to attack on every other subject, they're not against allowing millions of undocumented immigrants into the country. They're very much for it because, as I'm sure you have noticed, what those people want, they tend to get. If they didn't want this problem would have been fixed a long time ago.
Right. Exactly. Got some super chats here. Tara is in the booth, a patron caller. If you would like to say a quick hello, we do have a few minutes. Unmute your mic if so. If not, you've been chatting here, so you feel free to hang out back there. The Illustrative Carpet Company, seriously, isn't an onslaught of write-in campaigns a possibility of crushing the duopoly? Look, I mean, I'm not against the write-in campaign. I mean, if that was where you were coming from, then perhaps I apologize for assuming you were talking about Cornell. But yeah, look, I mean, if you want to launch a write-in campaign, go for it. We might have to resort to that for the Extra Bullet campaign because our volunteer numbers are not very good so far. But yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, people who want to run, who want to encourage people to write them in, why not? You know, let a thousand flowers bloom, that sort of thing. Yeah, there's nothing.
Look, let
me
look into this thing with Chappelle in Ukraine. Hopefully, it's not true. Maybe we can get him on the show and persuade him to run a write-in campaign.
That's what we should do. That would be a viral clip. Us arguing over Ukraine with Dave Chappelle.
Hey man, everyone knows that fucking town he lives in over there. I should just go run down where he lives.
Exactly. Tara, are you ready? Turn your camera on. All right, cool.
Hi. Oh.
Hey, how are you?
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Hi.
Well, you turn your camera on. If you want to turn it off, I mean, that's fine.
Oh no, why not? Why not? You know, I haven't done much with myself, but it's okay. Hi guys.
Hi, how are you?
How much time do I have, or do you have?
Well, we're running up on 3 hours, so we got some super chats to do. So, you know, we got time for a couple points, a few minutes.
That's not a very specific answer. You should run for president. Yeah. No, I just want to say about the Cornel West thing is that I appreciate you wanting to. I mean, and also if he wasn't running for president or seeming to or pretending to, I would be very remiss to have any critical comments about him. But he has never organized anything. He's never, I mean, he attends. If he's great. If he's invited and he can go, he goes. Yeah. And he has his tight set that he can, adapt to whatever the cause is. And he's very great at that. And there's no problem with that. And I think that's all he really wants to do. And not that's to diminish that. And I mentioned in the behind the scenes chat, if you go to his Cornel West reader, on page, whatever it is, 553 or something, he basically says what his ambition is as a public intellectual and how he's going to manage that in this kind of, at this point was hyper televised, but now the internet age, about how you get to, and everything goes to that. The way he dresses, the way he acts, the words he uses are very strategic. And this is just an opportunity to get that, to have more of a larger platform. It was never about running for president.
No, I agree.
Okay. So just don't ask people for their money and time then.
Well, I would agree with that. I mean, and I think that what's really weird is I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, he's intelligent. I'm not going to say. Obviously, that goes without saying. You know, and his mind is quite fantastic.
Brilliant guy, man.
But he has.
I used to watch his stuff all the time.
Yeah, he
I've
marries
watched lectures with
Chekhov
Cornel West. He's
and
great.
Coltrane.
He's always been a hero
into a
of
prophetic
mine.
Christian
Yeah.
message. I mean, obviously he has a great mind. But if you actually look at what he does and what he says, everybody is projecting so much onto him. And of course, by saying he's going to run for president, okay, it's fine. But it's quite clear that he wants to go in, make his give his very curated, practiced 15 to 30 minutes. Yeah. With very careful words and alliterations and whatnot to get people to try to think a bit differently, to try to step back a bit, to kind of, short circuit their standard thought. Fantastic. But beyond that, there isn't anything. And if you ask him about any policy, just to use a difference, to compare and contrast RFK, who also probably doesn't think, I don't know, maybe does think that, the winds are at his back and he is going to win. But for example, if Cornel West would say housing is a human right, it's ridiculous that people can't afford to live. We have to have affordable housing. And then beyond that, he has nothing to say about how to get it done or how to operationalize that. Or if you go to RFK, he actually has, we can do A, B, and C. Now, would that happen? You'd have to work out the politics and all that. But, and I think if Cornel West was serious about, because you never know, who knows, what could happen, then he could be the front man, the vision man, the inspirational uplift, better angel dude. And then you have some people behind him are actually filling out the kind of the scaffolding there. So then it looks like
bottom line, Cornell's not going to do anything to get himself nadered, which means it's you like to hear him on a podcast. That's delightful. Beyond that, he's not going to do shit, and he's made that pretty.
And I'm sorry,
clear
and I'll
through
ask
his
you guys
actions.
because it's not just me, because I've been, I can say, look, here's my Cornel West reader. It's the first academic book I didn't have to buy that I bought when I was in college, so I'm not a hater.
Right.
But if you look at, and it's kind of, people get mad at this. I mean, and Professor Zinkus told me to go fuck myself and that I was gross on a tweet I did when I said, this is like the Cornel West greatest hits / presidential campaign. And I filled out a bingo board with the phrases he's going to say in any campaign he does. And not those are bad phrases, but just say, look, I've been watching this. I've been paying attention to him for the last 25, 30 years or so. And he's going to hit all those marks. Yep. And is it a good set? Yep. Fantastic set. Are they good values? Yep. Fantastic values. But beyond that, it's like, and so when people want to pretend, I can understand, like what you said, people want something, they're hungry for something, they want to bite into it. So even Sabby Sabs, God bless her, she seems to really want to be like, oh, the platform. Who gives a shit about the platform of the stage? That's not what people are immediately going to be like, oh yeah, I'm really going to vote for this guy. Like the average voter or non-voter is going to look at the various platforms and compare and contrast them. That'd be great if they did. But it's just kind of funny that we want to hang on to anything. I think it's really difficult to just try to accept what's in front of us, rather than try to salvage and to make excuses. And it's like, if you objectively look at just what he has done, it's hard to come up with a different conclusion that what you guys have presented today. And it doesn't mean that he's a terrible man. Fantastic guy. Love him. Presidential campaign. Bullshit. That's all I'm saying. Unfortunately. Unfortunately.
I'm going to put you in the back, and I want to address something that you said, but then we got to do some super chats.
It's cool. I know. I struggle with brevity. I struggle with brevity.
It's okay. But I will address your
so
point. Because
so do we. That's why we do a 3-hour show.
Yeah, exactly. No, but you made a good point. And like I said, you can, hang out and listen to this. I'll take this offline. But on the question of people projecting things onto Cornel West, that's an interesting point, because a lot of people did project a lot onto him, just as a lot of people project a lot onto Trump. Right? People project things onto people who are not really clear as to what they represent. Like, there's this whole riddle about Donald Trump. What is it? Everybody tries to rack their brains. Why? What is the appeal of Donald Trump, right? How many thousands of articles have been written of every journalist, every commentator having this theory about what is it about Trump that people latch onto, right? it's because he's not really precise. He's kind of this chaotic guy who just exudes certain emotions and sort of invokes certain responses in people, but it's not quite clear what he's doing because he's not as precise in his execution. This is a theme I keep coming back to. Cornel the same way. I think a lot of people tried to project a lot onto him because it was never quite clear what direction he was heading. And Tara, what you said about RFK was true. People don't have to project as much onto RFK because RFK comes from a political family, right? He has that DNA of a guy who's about to run for office, right? His whole family are political people. They're very precise in their messaging. You don't have to ask yourself, okay, what's this guy about? You know it. So there's less projection. There's less guesswork on the part of RFK's coalition than there is on the part of Cornel's coalition because we're all kind of hoping for the best with this guy, but we're not really comfortable figuring out where he's going. And that leads to a lot of people making a lot of assumptions and a lot of estimates about where he's going and how he'll get there. Most of those, almost all of those, of course, end up being wrong because it's guesswork. Does that make sense, Russell?
Well, the projection with Kennedy is the Kennedys. It's the mystique of the Kennedys. People project this, the Camelot thing onto anyone whose last name is Kennedy. Right, for 5 seconds, the shit libs were in love with Patrick Kennedy. He was their he was their great hope for the future. There's something. I mean, Bear's examining and talking about it. Something that Frank Herbert deals with a lot in the Dune series. There's just something very slavish in humanity that tends towards elevating aristocracy. We're fascinated by family names and family lines. It's a flaw in the species, I think. So with Kennedy, it's not that nothing's projected. It's that it doesn't take as much of an act of imagination, I think you're saying, to imagine they're running for president, right? Because he's already got the Kennedy mystique built in.
No, but we know exactly what he's running on. We know what his
do we? He keeps running. He keeps. I didn't see that Jewish virus shit coming.
Well, but with that, yeah, but when he says, "Look, we are not as divided as the media says. I believe in the goodness of the American people. I believe we need to clean up our institutions and get out of these foreign entanglements." Like that fits on an index card. You know what I mean? There's a strategy there. I know who he's appealing to. I know whose votes he's going after. And I see a big basket of votes there. Cornel, it was never quite clear because at first he had this anti-surveillance shit on his platform with the People's Party, which was more populist. Then he went to the Greens. It was more progressive but less thorough. Now it's more thorough but just as progressive. Like, who are you actually targeting? Like, what's the strategy here?
Fair.
With Kennedy, it's very clear what he sees a lane and he's going through that lane. Right. With Cornel, you never really got what lane he was trying to travel down. That's where I would say.
And can I say, in anticipation of the fucking comments, yeah, we know about the NIH study that he's obliquely referencing, and that's not what he said, and the comments are not taken out of fucking context. Yes, we did watch the video. We saw it in its entirety. We're not misinterpreting it. We don't not get it. That was fucking crazy, crazy shit. The NIH study doesn't say that. It speculates on certain things, but that's not what he said in that clip.
I think you're a little overly defensive. I think a lot of the real dogmatic RFK stands have either moved on or given up trying to convert us.
I mean, it's not that bad. Dude, look at the comment section on the last live stream. You got. I mean, it's not a majority by any means, but you bring that shit up, you're gonna get like 5 or 6 people are gonna be like, "I can't believe that you guys are taking RFK out of context like the mainstream media. He was just saying that the Jews and the Chinese are responsible. That's the same thing the NIH said. What's so crazy?" Yeah. No, you're going to get that every fucking time.
Extra Bulla, thanks for the $2. Russia looks like Aldi's brand George Hamilton. Aldi's, that's a name you don't hear. You guys have Aldi's in New York City? I have an Aldi's up here. I like Aldi's. Eric J.
We don't have it. I've never seen it.
Yeah, Eric J. Yeah, the Aldi's are cool up here. Eric J gave us a wink for $5. Well, thank you. See that's a guy who knows how to be brief. That a guy understands brevity. A wink.
The soul of wits,
the soul of wits. Bram Binsky, thanks for the $9.99. Don't know if you guys are confirming my biases or if you're creating them, but I'm appreciative of it. Also, I predict RFK Jr. will be the new Green Party nominee.
Yeah, somebody else said that. No.
I don't.
If anything, he would go libertarian. If anything.
Yeah, I don't see that.
You see?
Happen.
You see? You see? I told you. Unbelievable, man. Don't follow leaders and watch your pocket meters.
I meant you guys could or should interview James. James who? I'll go back and check, Zach. I forget who you're talking about. But, oh, you're talking about the WHO. Oh, gotcha. I remember now. Thank you, Zach. Mason Stone, appreciate the $5. Cornel is a joke comedy of errors starting with his announcement. Hopefully RFK stays the course and still manages to hamstring Biden or Newsom. Yeah, I think that is the strategic way to look at it. If you see the election as an instrument for disruption. If you don't, then, that's valid too. Kaiju, thank you for the $5. I think RFK will announce Dr. Cornel will be his VP. No. People are starting to wishcast certain things now, trying to conjure up some sense of hope. And a couple of JOOs like us are here to give you a little bit of a reality check. That's not going to happen.
Dose of reality.
That's not going to happen. First of all, their stances on Zionism are incompatible, and obviously I'm much more with Cornel than RFK, but they're incompatible for that reason.
Maybe Tulsi.
Look, the right pick, well, Russell just said it. The right pick for RFK, if he really wants to do this, is Tulsi Gabbard. That's the right pick.
Yeah.
That is a very, very powerful ticket.
That's very compatible.
Yep, absolutely. Worst kill. Nazi is the new N-word. Okay, the correct term is freedom fighters with alternative politics. See what you're going there. Yes, exactly. Not all Waffen SS, right? Not all Waffen SS. The Illustrative Carpet Company, thanks for another $4.99. Man, it's Friday. It's payday. That's why all these super chats are coming in. We got to do more payday shows. Who is watching either of these two parties at this point in history and thinking they care about any citizen? I mean, what the fuck is wrong with people? No, look, I think in keeping with your previous couple of points, I think I'm all for write-in campaigns. Look, actually, you know what? I will give you this here. I don't know if you were mentioning this in the context of Cornel West earlier, but if Cornel West wants to do it now, he should just do it as a write-in. This way, hey, if you want to vote for me, here's how to spell my name, 1L. The problem is Cornel can't really run a write-in because too many people misspell his name. They call him Cornell like the university. It's Cornell with 1L. You have to have an easy name to spell if you're going to do a write-in campaign. But if he just got that should be his campaign slogan, Cornell, 1L at the end. Write me in. Because a write-in, hey, at least now you're not asking people to start, barnstorming through Nebraska to get you ballot access, right? Hey, write me in if you like me,
Actually, I would respect that. You make an excellent point, because then you're not asking people to volunteer. You're not asking for money. You're not at it. Just At that point, it's consistent with what I think this is all about. He just wants to, have a platform.
Right. Exactly. So maybe he should just run as a write-in at this point. That might be a good idea.
Good
See,
point.
You moved me. You changed my mind. Good job. Danny Rizzo, thanks for the €5. Marx explained the issue with immigration, industrial reserve army on how is essential to capitalism to keep wages down with migrants or not. Yep. Everton Wright Jr., thanks for the $5. If by magic RFK wins, he will form a coalition party with the Dems, so I'm not interested. But I've been saying that what Tara said about West forever. That's interesting. You say he will form a coalition party with the Dems. What you're saying is not off base at all. If you look at his platform, RFK is basically, for the most part, a lib. I mean, he is basically a liberal.
Right.
His stances are not out of step with mainstream Democrats on most issues. It's just that where he is out of step,
with a couple of notable exceptions,
he's way out of step, and he's too out of step on a couple areas that makes him a non-starter inside the Democratic Party with their voters. But you're right. I mean, when you think about it, he wouldn't have that hard a time governing with a Democratic majority because he's mostly in line with what they feel about things. So I believe that's everything. Is that everything?
I believe it is, my friend.
Long show this Friday morning, but that's because you guys are very generous. You kept us here with these super chats, so thank you very much. That's really helpful. That's what makes these morning shows possible, and so we thank you all very, very much for that. We will be back here on Sunday night. That is October 8th at 7 p.m. I want to thank everybody for sticking around. Oh, we got one more super chat in before the buzzer. Zach always gives us one before the buzzer. Hedges has a great view on Palestine, yet when the rubber met the road, Chris seemed to dismiss those concerned with the actual segregation rolling out. I think you're talking about the mandates and stuff like that. That's where I sense you're coming from with that. And look, that's a totally fair point. That's a totally fair point. By the way, we're going to cover this on Sunday, but Noam Chomsky is now teaching a master class on fighting disinformation.
I saw that, yeah.
Which literally, I mean, the irony of that is you could literally call that class manufacturing consent. You know what I mean? You could call it the same exact thing as his landmark book. That would be a great bookend to his career.
I mean, a lot of their stuff is very Babylon Bee, like George Bush on leadership.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? Exactly. Hillary Clinton on what? What was her masterclass about?
I think it was tough decisions in leadership, something like that.
Decision points,
decision making.
Was that?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, a lot of their stuff is like it sounds like you're doing satire.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, we will see you back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Thank you very much for this morning. Have a great day. Until we meet again, be safe and be well. And now, our first real courage in 4 weeks. Russell Dobular.
Courage!
I want to let that ring a little bit since we've missed it so much. Thanks, everybody. See you all next time.
Please clap.